Okay, I'm just going to go over to my own channel. Yeah, I'm doing this live because I don't care.
Doing the same thing.
And I have to mute myself. Oh, look at us all. Look at us all like knowing what we're doing and shit. Can you hear me? You can you,
Professional. Yes, yes.
you can okay, good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Today is a very special episode. It goes back further than most of us are aware. Whether you are part of a community or not, and that community is the LGBTQ2SIA community or the LGBTQQ2SIA community. Because now, if you so choose, the term questioning can be included in the acronym of the Alphabet Mafia, as we have been called.
I like the
Um,
alphabet community, but I like the alphabet mafia better.
the battles and the fights that have occurred in this community go back before any of us existed. They go back to our parents' heyday in the 50s. Um, I remember, well, I don't remember. I watched, and if you can find this, you can watch it too. It's a documentary called "P.S. Burn This Letter, Please," which chronicles uh, queer life and drag life in New York City in the 50s. If you want to use that as a jumping off point, you may. It's a series of letters that were written between California, an individual in California, to their friends in New York, and the lives they led. So that was the 50s. In 1966, in I believe it was San Francisco in the Tenderloin, everyone talks about Stonewall and the rock that Marsha P threw that put queer culture on the map. That's only true depending on who you ask. Because the Compton's cafeteria riots in the Tenderloin predate Stonewall by 26 years ish. And there was as much bullshit during those protests and riots as you can imagine. Like I just said, it was Stonewall that put the fight of our community on the map, and it turned it into what we know it as today. You can find out more about the events that I just mentioned if you look for them. They're out there. Again, the documentary is P.S. Burn This Letter, Please, and just Google the Compton's cafeteria riots in the Tenderloin if you so choose. In Canada, we're broadcasting today from Toronto, Canada, and my guest is from the Seattle area in the USA. We're both North American. In the 90s, continuing history. I forget when it was. I think it was maybe the early to mid 90s in Montreal, Canada. My cousin, my blood cousin, was involved in a summer where a party called Sex Garage turned into what began as a simple, really cool party between him and his people that he hung out with in the queer community into what he referred to as the summer of death. During that summer, in the days of that party, my cousin bore witness to his friends being beaten by police. During all the protests that happened because of the party, I assume, I don't remember. And he also saw death for reasons that any logical human being can put together. These are the last events that I have in my mind, but these are the building blocks of today's show. And I say that because using Stonewall as a jumping off point because it's the easy math. What we're going to be talking about today, I can assure you, Marsha P. Johnson and her good friend Sylvia Rivera never saw fucking coming. The events that I mentioned a second ago, had they not happened, maybe not in the 50s, but from the 60s and the 80s, and possibly the 90s in Montreal, had society had its way, you can arguably say that myself and my guest would not be allowed to be here doing this today. What are we doing? Recently, there have been laws passed in the state of Alabama in USA denying trans youth the proper health care that they deserve. So today, I'm going to have a chat with my good friend Katsuni, and we're going to unpack some shit. So I'm going to stop talking to my camera and turn myself to the good kid.
Mama Clara, thank you so much for having me out.
Thank you for being here.
Appreciate being here. And to all of our viewers, hello. Thank you guys for joining us. So today's story, we are going to be discussing Alabama's anti-LGBTQIA and anti-transgender legislation. So about a year ago, these particular bills were put through, and the Alabama State Court decided that it wanted to interfere and limit some of the things in these bills because they were deemed unconstitutional at the time. About a month ago, the governor, I personally am unsure as to how. I'm not a political expert and kind of pay attention to the outcome, not so much the process.
Same.
He somehow signed a very discriminatory state bill into law. There's two of them. We've got SB 184. This law makes it a felony punishable by up to 10 years in prison to provide gender affirming care to individuals under the age of 18. Arkansas passed the only other gender affirming care ban. So basically, any child that is questioning their gender identity and has chosen to transition to the gender they identify with are not legally allowed to receive this care until they are of legal age. That's one of the things that SB 184 does. SB 184 also forces educators to out children to their parents should they come out to someone such as their guidance counselor or their teacher or a conversation is overheard. It's one of the really fucked up byproducts of this law. I like to call this a paperclip because technically they're two separate ideas, but they get presented at the same time. So you either agree on the idea or you disagree on the idea, and all goes through or none goes through. And
I'm going to make a distinction there before you go ahead and say that given what you just said about the guidance counselors having information disclosed to them and then forcing the kid to disclose that same information to the parent, I will admit,
it's not the kid that's being forced to do it. It's the teachers and the guidance counselors that are being forced to do it.
Oh, okay.
The way the law is written is not informing the legal guardian of the child is considered providing gender affirming care. That's
okay. I just want to make the distinction that I don't. Just to the common thread here today is we are comparing loosely Canada and the U.S. And so I just want to make it clear that I don't know if it's the same here in Canada.
Right.
That's all I'm going to say.
These two, from an American perspective, these laws are very discriminatory and not normal for at least my generation. I never thought I would see legislation passed in a way where this kind of stuff is taking place and these kind of actions are allowed against people. So even from our perspective, this is not okay. This is an example of a minority of bigots abusing a system they set up to make the world the way that they think it should be.
the,
But
the way
that's
they
a
want it.
conversation for another day.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, with the outing of children, that's not good.
mm,
Uh, Not only is that going to create a stigma in the kid's mind, it's going to create a stigma amongst their friends and their social circles, and
mm,
it's just forcing this kind of action, in my opinion, is not okay. That is, albeit they are children, that is still their decision to make. It's their future, it's their life. They should play a part in that decision. Their
mm,
words should be heard.
mm-hmm,
um, Moving on to the second law that was recently passed, we have HB 322. This law bans K 12 students from using bathrooms and school facilities consisting with their gender identity.
mm,
Additionally, the law bans conversation about sexual orientation and gender identity in classrooms grade K through 5, so kindergarten through 5th grade. It's very similar to Florida's Don't Say Gay or Trans bill,
mm.
but it's a little more restrictive in that aspect. And this law presents its own set of social problems because, like, it's going to affect young children and their ability to feel normal around the rest of their peers.
Mm-hmm.
So we all know the young kindergarten, first grade classroom assignment of go home and draw your family and come in and tell us what they do and who they are. Well, children with two mommies or two daddies might not be allowed to do this in those grades because of how the bill is written. They might not be allowed to entertain the conversation
Mm,
because it could lead to, well, why do you have two daddies? By this law, they can't have that conversation,
mm.
or at least that's how it will be interpreted by the ruling party of the area.
How fucked up is that?
It's messed up. I don't
That
like it.
that
I
even
think that's dumb. You
even
know,
at even at the what was it, the bracket you mentioned, kindergarten
kindergarten,
to,
5th grade, basically pre-puberty,
okay, so
stereotypically.
the way this has come to fruition is that no matter how a kid in that age group expresses these things, they for all intent and purpose right now they can't.
The teacher cannot entertain the concept.
Ah,
And I by no means am an apologist for it. I'm just trying to give the facts of how it could potentially be applied. The spirit
so a
uh,
student can bring it up, but the idea itself can't be entertained.
and yes, and that's where
Okay.
the potential problem comes from, because how does the teacher, handle that situation? There's a lot of social stigma backlash that'll come from this. If the kid's not allowed to participate in explaining their family, the
Hmm.
other kids are going to go home and ask their family. And then
Well,
instead of getting a relatively unbiased opinion from like an educator whose job is to be neutral when interacting with children beyond education,
hmm,
um, that classmate's going to get their parents' interpretation, and there's the
yeah.
potential for a stigma from that. And then that the fact that the school won't talk about it, young kids, because like I remember being that young, and I remember when people would be like, nah, we're not going to talk about that for whatever the conversation happened to be. That gets received as bad
Hmm,
in a child's mind, and they start to think that it's bad because we don't talk about it, because that's how we teach them to not talk about like taboo subjects. So their young mind naturally associates that with a taboo concept, and then
yeah.
that social stigma grows up with them.
Hmm.
And so like it's one of those laws where, like, from a slightly conservative standpoint, I understand kind of where HB 322 comes from. We don't need to be talking about sex until those hormones are pumping. That is the American conservative mindset. We don't need to teach them about this until their body is ready for it. And I get the logic, I do. But at the same time, that's no reason to deny somebody that's a little bit ahead of the rest of their peers. I, as the oldest of all my siblings, am one of the most immature of all of my siblings. The youngest of all of my siblings is the most mature, and I remember being a kid and being incredibly intimidated by that maturity. It was backwards. But that being said, she was capable of making decisions about herself and her future that I was not. And
Mm-hmm.
so making laws that limit this, I get in spirit where they're coming from, but I'm also smart enough to know that in application, they are going to go overboard with this, and it's going to ruin a lot of people's lives. It's going to change a lot of people's view of this subject, and it's only going to hinder the growth of our social acceptance and the equal rights that people should get based on the fact that they're people. Sorry, I'm going to be an American for a second.
No, go.
Our most basic values, as our Magna Carta says, is we have the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And these laws limit the pursuit of happiness, which is anti-American and anti what we are supposed to be about. And it's very shameful that we have people creating these types of situations that is only going to hinder social growth and acceptance, which is the way of the future. We have thousands of years of history that show us that discrimination and war and conflict is not the way to solve a situation, and we continue to do it. And this is just another example.
We
That's all I got to say on that. Sorry for rambling off on that.
no,
Those
no,
are
no.
basically that's Alabama right now. You know, they want to go back to good old let's be Christian, Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, and it's very annoying.
I meant to mention this a second ago. With the historical aspects of all this, with the current climate in Alabama, I couldn't help but think when I found out about this, and I will admit that I'm kind of confused about this. But what one of my thoughts was if I'm a parent and I have a trans kid and all this stuff is going on, what the fuck do I tell my kid? And that's where my confusion with the laws come in, and maybe you can smooth out some of those wrinkles because
Okay,
the
so
information.
okay, yeah, I definitely
Like,
can smooth that out. So so on the subject of parents interacting with their kid, the parent is welcome to do what they want. That
for
is
sure.
social liberty. These laws attack specifically the school systems
Mm.
and the education system. So it's in the education
Not the medical system.
area. Yeah, no, not in the home system.
That was the information I had as well. Yeah.
For as much as they're trying to get there, that's
Oh,
not
are
going to
they?
happen for a
Oh,
while, but they're trying.
okay.
No, like the parents are allowed to do what they will, but coming back to SB 184, that's where the ban of gender affirming care comes in, because that is separate from the schools. Like the
The,
schools are bound to that rule, but that attacks medical facilities.
the
So
denying of the gender affirming healthcare is are the headlines I saw.
yes, that one attacks more medical and doctor. It's more of a state thing, not necessarily an education system thing.
And I guess that's where my confusion lies.
Yeah.
Because okay,
Now,
if
parents are allowed, the parents are, if your child is trans and you want to support them and you want to get them more feminine attire or more masculine attire or whatever attire they are going for, if you want to let them build their aesthetic, that is your right as an individual. You have
rock
to
on.
deal with the society's backlash. That's the byproduct of that.
Yeah.
But if you want to go like HRT or go to counseling to talk about it, but have a supportive counselor that's going to guide you down the path of transitioning versus, try to correct you, that's where it starts to get, mucky because, like, for example, a doctor cannot prescribe HRT to a minor. If a
Mm.
doctor does that, that is illegal for the doctor to do, and the doctor can end up going to prison for 10 years. So their
Dis-
career is
di-
on the line.
and that's despite these new laws.
No, that is these new laws.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, that is
See,
SB 184 attacks medical facilities predominantly. It does have
it's
some side effect in the education system, such as using requested pronouns,
mhm,
uh, keeping confidentiality on coming out.
mhm,
But HB 322 more attacks the schools
mm.
use the if you got a penis, you use the boy bathrooms. If you got a vagina, you use the girl bathrooms.
Mm.
That's what HB 322 does.
See,
Uh,
it's
SB just it basically going down the path of transitioning is banned if you are a minor. You cannot take hormones. You cannot have doctors or counselors, or at least I'm interpreting it this way. I feel that they would not really want doctors or counselors that support the concept of transition. I could see that being used against the medical establishment.
In the U.S., and again, me and Kit are chatting, crossing borders here. In terms of legal adulthood in Canada, and I believe you said earlier when we were off air that the mark is 18,
Yes.
which basically we can chalk up to if you can vote, you're a grown up.
Yes, that's
Um,
yes. 18 is when you're an adult. You
yeah,
know, if you get caught doing something petty, mommy and daddy can't bail you out, or it's no, they're just a kid. No, that's our hard limit of they don't know any better. That's
yeah, and it's a sensitive conversation too, and I only want to make that distinction because of that sensitive conversation, um, with the idea of legal adulthood in mind. Is that Is that at the Fed level in the US or is that state by state?
18 is federal, right?
Okay,
18 is federal. Sorry,
that
I had to ask my counsel real quick.
okay,
Yes,
so it's a
18
Fed
is
thing. Okay.
18 is a federal limit. For things like cigarettes and alcohol, that is controlled at a state level.
Okay.
We do have 21 across the board for
Yeah.
alcohol. I don't know what like our state limits are. So there are certain things in each state that they can set actual age limits, but on a federal level, 18 is the age of majority in America.
Right. Oh, I see. Okay. Here it's 19. Well,
Oh,
you can vote at 18, but to do what you're about to do,
yeah.
it's
No,
19. That shot,
18,
or is that coffee or a shot?
it's beer.
Oh, well, there you go. You got to be 19 here.
Mhm.
18 in Quebec.
That was a long time ago. I
It's
remember
what? It's
times.
18 in Quebec and Alberta, I believe.
Ah,
But
yeah. So alcohol here is 21.
the
Surprising.
fuck the fucking funny thing about here is, if you want to talk age of consent, 16 is the mark here, I think,
Yeah. Same
which
here.
means, in a funny sense, you like take something as rudimentary as fucking cigarettes. You can smoke cigarettes
Hmm?
at the age of 16 if you can get them.
Okay, so age of consent laws here are actually really different. Cigarettes and alcohol are hard 21 now. Cigarettes used to be 18, but now it's 21.
Mm,
Um, age of consent is it's so fucking weird here. Age of consent is 16, and you have a 4-year grace period on who you're playing with. So if you're 16, you can go as high as 20. And that's like
mm.
we were in high school together. Why stop because I'm 18? I get it, but it's bullshit. But like once you turn 18, that 4 years goes away, and it's just it's a really weird fucking system here. Yeah, but you can legally fuck at 16, providing your parents don't want to bitch about it. If your parents bitch, it's called statutory rape. It's very weird. At 18, you are considered majority. You are a legal adult. Welcome to the world. Pay your taxes.
Hmm.
Um,
You can also defend your country.
that too. Yes, you can go die for your country.
You can die for your country, but you can't buy beer.
Nope, in your country. Uh,
Oh, is that how it works here?
I mean, if it's an age of if age of drinking somewhere else
Oh, that's
is
right.
18, you
Yeah.
can drink at that age over there.
Fuck, I've got friends in the
If you're
service. What
off
am I talking
duty and
about?
they're going to sell you booze over in whatever country you're in, they're not going to stop you.
Fuck me.
That's part of the privilege. Um, 21 is alcohol and cigarettes, and 25 is renting a car, and that's yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're bleeding into each other here. Yeah, because I remember when my sister got married for insurance reasons. When we were at the car lot, they wouldn't let me drive one of the cars, even though I had a license.
Yep, yep. They like to do 25 because
I wasn't 18.
I don't know
I
why,
don't think I was anyway. I forget what the fuck happened, but
but yeah,
oh,
no, it is very very weird, and that's why like laws like this make it very difficult for those that are more mature and aware of themselves to follow the path that they want to. Um,
that's an interesting point you raised right there. A more aware population, even though these new I don't even want to use the word law, even though it is. These new policies
yes,
are targeting our young people, and whether you like it or not, uh, these people may or may not be running the world come one day.
exactly.
I my show is not about mental health. That's not the way I lean. But with these, I'll call them big kids in the schoolyard now, referencing the laws. With these new big kids ruling the show, I can't even imagine what, and I don't even, I almost don't want to think about it. Uh, what let's say, let's consider everyone under the age of 20 for easy numbers. Uh, what, I can't imagine what they're thinking.
I can't either.
Because
Like,
you have to imagine that there are some queer and trans kids out there. I'm using umbrella terms. Um, who may or may not be looking at their kids and going, or their parents and going, "I'm illegal now." What, mom and dad? What the fuck's going on? Right? To use loose language.
no, it's a fair outlook of it, and
That's a mental health mind fuck.
yeah, it really is. Like, even I can't really comprehend. Like, I grew up in the '90s, where,
Same.
like, for me, coming into accepting the fact that I was a gay individual, like, I definitely saw social hindrances in society growing up, but
Hmm.
I've never really experienced extreme discrimination unless
Nor,
it was that individual's intentive point to try to hurt me. I've never really had people not like me simply because I'm gay. I've never really experienced hate because I'm gay. So
hmm.
I cannot fathom what it would feel like to have legislation passed that says you're wrong. And
And
that's
that harkens back to when I was introducing the show, and when I said that, Marsha and her friend never saw this coming.
Mhm. Like, I the world, yes, what you said, the world I grew up in and the way that I've seen the world progress. I guess
Because they
that's where
weren't
I'm
fucking
trying to go.
around back then.
Yeah, I guess that's where I'm trying to go with it. The progression that I've seen, this is a ball coming from a completely different ballpark. Like, I have no idea what this is or why it's happening, and I understand why the Supreme Court's not interfering. We all know what way our Supreme Court leans now. Um, but this shouldn't be allowed to happen. Like I said, you're limiting basic rights, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness.
This is
That's our
it.
thing.
I meant to mention this too. The game has changed, and what I mean by that is, and I keep going back to my opening words, uh, going back over the through the decades, throughout history, everything that has been attempted to be done has been targeted toward people like me and you. Now they're going after the young bloods,
Yes.
which is a
And
complete. That's a that's a fucking game changer. I don't care what state it is.
well, and to guide this conversation into the direction of politics and
Go,
morality and why it may be happening. Again, this is purely speculation before we go on. This is my opinion based on what I've seen and what I've experienced in the world.
go.
Some research, but not a lot. This comes down to the morality of the individuals creating this system. Now, me personally, I'm going to be mean and blunt, everybody. I'm sorry. This has to do with a dying era and a dying, hateful, spiteful, racist, and prejudicial era. And to understand this era, you kind of got to go into the politics and the backstory about it. So now we are going to move on and we are going to talk about the boomers. So, one of the things about boomer history that a lot of people tend to overlook, not only are they a very large generation, they are a population wise very large and very dense generation, which gave them power. If they all voted on the same thing, it was going to happen simply because there were so many of them. Now, as they've gotten older, unfortunately, this generation has been one of the few generations that has not thought about the future and the children.
Mm,
So they have created a bunch of policies and legislation that benefits them.
mm.
And in that process, they became corrupted with that concept and with that power. Now, when it comes down to LGBTQ legislation, personally, I think that a lot of our legislators and a lot of our lawmakers and a lot of our senators here in America are just old. And when I say old, I mean, if you were grandma or grandpa and you were spouting shit like this, I would put you in the dirtiest, nastiest nursing home I could find. Old. Unfortunately, they have money and they can still walk on their own. So we have to kind of listen to their bullshit because that's what we've been taught to do. That being said, the most racist and prejudicial part of the boomer generation, they're on their last leg and they know
Mm,
it. They're in
mhm,
their late 70s, early 80s. The youngest of them are in their 90s right now. Like,
mm,
oh,
mhm.
they're going to die soon. What does the injured tiger do on its
Mm.
last breath? It lashes out at its hardest. And I honestly believe that the resurgence of this racist and prejudicial attitude is literally the death breath of an era. I'm hoping it's not.
I
I,
wouldn't disagree with that.
I hope that as time goes on, the next generation comes into power and they're just like, yeah, fuck this. We're just like, you have to tie your horse to a post between 12 o'clock and 3 o'clock on this day laws that are old, archaic, and don't apply. We're
Uh,
just going to ignore it. And I'm
we're
hoping that's what happens. But like, I feel a lot of this legislation is just a dying generation trying to
you,
get their last bits in because they've lost their mind and don't know how to hide their racistness anymore. Like that's my personal opinion here.
you could almost say, in a superficial sense, that what we're dealing with right now, right or wrong, is I don't know how old you are, but I hope you're old enough to remember the show Bewitched.
I'm not young enough to have watched it air, but I do know Bewitched, and I very much
Okay,
really.
so I just wanted to make sure because basically you could translate what we're dealing with in 20 fucking 22. What we're to encapsulate everything you said, we're dealing with 50s values 22 years into the new millennium.
Yeah, and that's like even like I said for me,
That won't
that's
that
mind
won't that
boggling
won't
because
fucking work.
we've just had progression upon progression upon progression since the 2000s, and now
Hmm.
we've got these kind of laws, and I'm just like, why don't y'all just secede and be done with it? We'll wait the 5 years for you to be poor and ask to come and join the United States again.
And just to take a moment, in the chat, hello Squidworks and hello Charlie.
Yes, hi chat. Thank you guys for tuning in. Sorry, we've been having intense conversations and
Yeah, we are responsive, but when we and I can see the chat. But yeah, welcome, welcome, ladies. Nice to see you.
but now feeding off of the dying breath bit, that's where our legislation is really kind of becoming a problem because it's not just legislation, it's just a bunch of people that are used to being in power trying to pass
Mm.
things. And you are right. At the end of it, when they're gone, it's not going to work.
It's
And
already happening.
that really feels like, as an American that has to watch it, it really feels like that's the situation that we are in right now. We're just kind of waiting for grandma and grandpa to kick it. Like,
Because let's not
sorry.
be let's not even though we're talking about the new laws that have passed in the I think to the best of my knowledge in the home of the clan. um
Yeah,
let's we're not calling these kids stupid because they're not.
no.
We're not talking about a bunch of human tumbleweeds here, no matter where they are. And if you want to look to the future, kids nowadays, I mean, I don't have kids, don't want them, but I'm irritated by them any day that ends in Y. But that said, they ain't dumb.
No. No,
You
that's one thing I will give the younger generation. They
you
for as
piss these
shortcut as they take with technology, they're intelligent as
you,
shit.
you
They're
piss these
smart
fucks
as
off
shit.
enough. I don't care what country it is. They're gonna fucking tell you what time it is.
Yeah, that's the like as a middle aged millennial, I'm like right smack dead in the middle of the millennial era. I love my Zoomers, but sometimes y'all be snotty and snappy. But
The
that's going to benefit you guys in the future. Like, oh, I cannot wait to see you guys take the political front. That's going to be quality entertainment.
Now I don't know. I don't have much of a political landscape in terms of the U.S. and I barely have it for Canada, even though I could.
I have a
Um,
basic
I'm
understanding of US politics. I tend to
mm,
watch more progressive news, so if it hinders somebody, I tend to be against I tend to be against it. But
the only person I can think of, and I don't even know where he is. But I know his name because I'm aware. And I know he gets the piss taken out of him a lot on Sirius XM, for which I am a subscriber. This guy Mitch McConnell. You don't know? You don't?
oh, I hate Mitch McConnell.
Oh, you do know that fucker, do you?
Oh, I hate. I could go off for I could go
Who
on for hours on Mitch McConnell has to
who
talk
who
like
who runs
this.
who runs Alabama?
I don't know. Let me look it up. I don't pay that. No, I think Mitch is like Kentucky or something.
So he's in the same neighborhood.
Ooh, Alabama senators. Yes, he's very much in the same neighborhood. Mitch McConnell
Okay.
is the offspring of tobacco plantation.
Oh, is he?
Yes.
Oh,
The
what a
Alabama
colorful
state.
history he has done.
I know, right? That's why he still talks. That's why he still talks like granddaddy from the plantation. He's got to talk all slow and like he's from the South because he just bores people to death
Hmm.
until they stop listening. Alabama state senators are Richard Shelby and Tommy Tuberville.
And just for clarity for those that are unaware, Alabama. I mean, I mentioned the Klan and stuff. We're talking about a red state here, yeah.
Yes, Alabama
Okay.
is a red state.
So
Yes.
we can loosely translate that into strong traditional family values, etc.
Yes, so in America, we have this lovely strip of states,
The
Alabama,
the
Georgia,
Bible
Tennessee,
Belt.
Kentucky. Yes, we have the Bible Belt. And Alabama happens to be one of the most Bibliest areas of the Bible Belt.
Is it?
And coming back to like our conversation about, kindergarten and I have two daddies or two mommies,
Mm-hmm.
that's where it becomes a problem.
Mm.
Because the kid will go home and ask their Bible Belt parents why,
Oh
and
fuck.
they'll get their Bible Belt parents' answer as to why that person didn't get to talk. Children typically listen to their parents above their social peers. Normally, I didn't,
Oh.
but um, it's I have found out that that's where the problem is really going to lie because you have 100-year-old values still
Mm.
being handed down in the household. And albeit morally, some of those values may be beneficial. There are great things to take from the Bible as any religion. You don't have to take all of it. Some of it's good, some of it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
But typically and unfortunately, the bad gets passed down. And
Mm.
that's one of the core issues of the Bible Belt. They're very conservative. They're very religious values.
Mm-hmm.
They're very them and nobody else. Even though they don't really contribute to everybody else, it's kind of backwards.
Just to entertain that idea for a second, given the Bible Belt, do you think even a glimmer? I mean, I might sound really naive when I say this, but we're given the fact that we're dealing with a red state here. Uh, do you think there's, and I'm honestly, I don't know about this, but is there any uh, religion behind any of these decisions? You
Yes.
figure you didn't even flinch.
No.
You could have
Yes.
you could have thought about it for a second.
No. No. It's that. Yes. This definitely, particularly in that area. Yes, because like speculating here, but a well-educated and well-rounded person.
I might sound stupid asking that question, but I'm not fucking American, so.
No, like religion definitely is playing a part in it. That's why you tend to see more Christian values in red states
Uh,
because their morality is superior. That is how they view it. That is what
or
they
as
do.
they see
It
it.
doesn't matter what you think. My storybook told me this, and I'm choosing to believe it. And you're wrong, and I'm right, and you're going to do what I want, or you're an abomination. That is their thought process. Looking at it from like a third
And
party
and and
stand.
and on the heels of what you just said, if my knowledge of American politics is on point whatsoever, you take any fucking idea, and if it comes to any opposition whatsoever, to to any degree, money will buy in favor.
Yes and no. It depends on where that money is coming from. Now, unfortunately, that has to do with like our lobbying system and what corporations.
Lobbyists, yes, yes.
Yes, that's part of our corporatocracy that we've got going here. It's very
See,
annoying.
now we're getting away from the youth aspect of this, but
Yeah, and but that's the thing. These laws please our corporatocracy. So we've
yeah,
gotten to the point where the idealisms are starting to affect the future of our nation
nah,
because of how ingrained these ideas are. And most of these
bingo,
ideas are ingrained because of religious values.
nah.
Looking at it without any texts that tell you it's wrong, most people wouldn't care. Like, story time. So one day when I was homeless, I was down in Hollywood, just kicking it, doing my thing, having fun, right? And there are a set of German tourists that just stop to chat. It happens every now and then. They want to see what the street kids doing, so they stop and ask. And we
Yeah.
just started talking about similarities and differences between the nations. And we did get on the subject of gender orientation because this was early freedom, young adulthood for me. So I was curious about the world's perspective, not just America's.
Hi, Sir Fred.
One of the most profound things was said to me this day. They were like, so it seems that here in America, people think it's gay for a man to lay with another man in their bed. And I'm like, yes, that is America. And they're like, oh, in Germany, we think it's gay for somebody to wonder what somebody's doing in their bedroom in the first place. Like
Really
why,
now?
why are you thinking about what another man is doing in his bedroom if you're not interested? And I'm just like, genius. Fucking genius. Yes, it was genius. And so, like, I personally try to look at it that way. And if you do look at it that way, what other reason would some old fuck that used to go to church every Sunday have to hate somebody who inside they're a woman and outside they're not? And they want to look outside like they feel inside. Why would you make laws against that unless it's some sort of ingrained fucked off morality? That's my personal opinion on the matter, but I very much feel that religious values, and again, back to my comments on our old people going senile, I think they're just at an age where they're no longer able to hide their prejudices because in
Mm,
their era the way you looked and the way that you appeared was important. They didn't
yeah.
have credit scores like we had. The way
Mm-mm.
you looked is what got you your house. The way you looked and talked and behaved is what got you your car.
Yeah.
So as time changed, they kind of assimilated to it, not because their values changed, but because they come from an era where external appearance is important. And now they've hit an age where either A, they don't care anymore, or B, they're having trouble controlling the barrier. And all that comes back into like being brought up in that era and having super fundamental religious values instilled upon you. You're no longer able to maintain faith anymore. And I think their core values are starting to interfere with their politics, and it's just
Mm.
getting way out of hand.
It's funny you're talking that way because during the opening I mentioned the documentary called "P.S. Burn This Letter, Please," and again I'll say hi to Sir Frag. Um,
Greg, thank you for tuning in. Say hi
what
to Amber for us.
what that documentary covered was, despite the letters that were sent from the West Coast to the East Coast, it was drag in New York City in the 50s. And uh, it doesn't relate. to youth culture at all, but it does pinpoint how over time
I'm
the
I'm still here.
the policies and the protocols that were in place targeted adults. And what I found fascinating about watching that documentary was that there were clubs in which you would find your drag queens and stuff, but they weren't called drag queens. The people referred to as drag queens were your whores and prostitutes on the street.
Hmm.
The drag queens in the clubs, however legal they might have been or whatever, they weren't. They were almost held on pedestals comparatively,
Hmm.
even though those clubs weren't legal. They were run by the mob,
Hmm. Which is
and
very interesting when you
yeah.
think about it, because like the crimey organization chose to capitalize on queer culture when it wasn't socially acceptable to the rest of the world.
Well, that's it, right? And I mean, there were countless occasions where in Manhattan and all through New York, these clubs would get raided, and the girls would be thrown in the back of the paddy wagon for doing nothing but singing a fucking song. And whether or not you know about this culture back then, these clubs were frequented by people that were like celebrities that were high profile then and still are if they're still alive.
Hmm. It's a
Really A-list people.
it's an interesting concept. I actually, funny story, and again, this comes back to like morality, how your external appearance. This it does play into the concept. I saw this meme on Facebook. Ah, millennial, yes. Um,
You didn't see a meme, did you?
oh, I totally saw a meme. It's one of the greatest memes. More of like a Tumblr post meme, but a meme nonetheless.
Mm,
And it was one of those where it was fuck's sakes, brain, do not do this to me right now.
um,
Give me a second, guys. I got to get back on track.
no, go for it.
Talking about this. Okay, so apparently it was a story about how like some uber buff straight guy had like accidentally wandered into the wrong part of the bar and
Mm.
bared witness to a drag show.
Oh, I see.
They had stayed there for a bit, and near the end of it, of course, you know the newbie, and so they come up and they start talking to him. It's like, "Honey, are you straight?" And he's just like, "I don't know." And it like I like it because that right there, that is the problem that people have with the culture. It shows that there are other ways to express yourself and other ways of being alive,
Mm,
and when they're exposed to that, it messes with them.
mm,
It screws with their sense of morality because they've grown up thinking that this is the way the world is. I grew up in a relatively well created bubble by my family, actually
same.
getting out into the world, having been homeless, seeing what is out there.
Mm,
It really showed me how limited my perspective was as a child. And I assume that a lot of people go through that same feeling and grow up kind of inside of their bubble. They never really leave it. And so when you experience things outside of that bubble, it causes a massive pop of your reality. And sometimes people like it, sometimes people don't. And those that like it, sometimes they're like, oh, I'm not leaving. And they keep hanging out. And other
mm,
times they freak out because they don't know
mm,
what to do with it. And you know, all of that plays into that archaic morality of this is how you're supposed to behave, this is how you're supposed to be, this is how you're supposed to look, and this is what you're supposed to do.
that's
And
it.
all of that is based off of archaic morality and religious fundamentalism. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, you tell personal stories. I can and I'm going to relate this to the current climate right now in Alabama. I remember uh, when I didn't know I was a girl because I didn't know what transgender was back in those days. But I remember experimenting with my sister's clothes back in my younger years and stuff. And I went my whole life being a closeted CD. I couldn't I can but I can't imagine uh, what my what my house would have looked like uh, had I had I had the feelings then that I do now. I remember when I came out as trans and I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and she says, "Oh, what were you so scared of?" Or no, coming out as a crossdresser. Sorry. Um, and she couldn't understand it. I said, "Jess," because she referenced a lesbian friend of ours. I said, "I'm not her." Fucking fear. I didn't know what was going through my head. And we can also say that, for the sake of argument, the kids, whoever they are in Alabama, don't know what the fuck's going on.
No.
And even, in their own heads, maybe they're trying to navigate it themselves. And now
Mhm.
these new fucking policies have gone through. Even though I came out as an adult, I I didn't know what the fuck was going on.
Same.
I led my entire life until 6 years ago as a severely closeted person.
Yeah, but when you finally come out, that liberation is a wonderful feeling. And everybody should be able to feel that. And
Mm,
that's where these laws are just incredibly volatile because, like, so I had issue coming out, as a gay person myself, growing up. I'm very much open about it now.
mm,
But back then, I remember having issues.
mm.
Now, I'm not trans. I've had my bit with my thoughts, but I know what I am. But to those that are questioning or those that need to transition, I'm no medical expert, but I think if you know what you are, it's better to send you through puberty once. If why should you have to conform to this way of life if you only have to do it for until you're 18?
Uh,
And then you can kind of move somewhere and go do what you want. Why should somebody have to go through that process just for the freedom to be who they want? But at the same time, like you said, the kids are still figuring themselves out, and so to
uh.
create laws around this concept, that's not going to help them figure themselves out now, and it will make it more difficult for them to want to figure themselves out in the future.
Well, because Allah can't stop someone's thoughts, right? I mean, for fuck's sakes.
Yeah, like, can't thought police. It's the one thing
All,
you.
all, all, all that does is stop the process in terms of the public eye, shall we say?
Mm-hmm.
And which also brings up something I was going to mention. Well, right now, the idea of, um, I don't quite know how to put this, but the idea of, for lack of a better phrase, separating church and state,
Mm.
right? If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and this goes back to the laws specifically in the YouTube clips that I saw from these medical professionals. If you remember, I was telling you that they had one doctor they were interviewing, and it sounded like, because I watched it a week after the law was passed, and he was describing situations where some pharmacies were filling prescriptions and others unequivocally weren't. And what he basically described was, if um, if a given patient had an active prescription previous to when the laws were put in place, then those prescriptions would be honored.
Yes,
So it's
America
like a
does
grand
like
it's a
the
grandfathering in
grandfather
policy.
system. Yes, the America does do grandfather systems quite regularly.
But he
Uh,
also but he also said that past the passing date, pharmacies weren't under the thumb of this law. So that's where my confusion is. But like you said earlier, it doesn't really focus on
no,
medicine, it focuses on schools.
so I mean,
This is so fucking gray.
well, well, hold on, I got to get back to it real quick. Do this page. All right, so like HB 322, that's the school one. That one attacks schools specifically.
Mm,
SB 184 attacks more medical systems.
okay.
Now, when it comes to prescriptions, here in America, most of our pharmacies are privately run.
Really?
they're run by big pharma, but the organizations that dish out our medicine, they are considered private businesses, such as CVS, Walgreens. your
Uh-huh.
corner store, your corner pharmacy. Most grocery stores will have a pharmacy, but they are part of the entity that that pharmacy is in. Our medical system is not connected to our government like that. So, should a law about gender affirming care pass, a pharmacy is free to deny. They don't have to give you the drug if they don't want to,
So
regardless of.
they're looked at as companies.
Yes, that's exactly what pharmacies are here. They are functional
Well,
companies for profit.
businesses.
Yes, they are. Yes.
Well, for well,
So that
mother,
business has the right to just not prescribe the medicine.
it's discretionary.
Yes. So if the law prohibits the
Does
for
that does that apply? Does that apply to anybody? Do you
that
know?
that well, all pharmacies have the ability to do that.
Okay.
If for example SB 184, that prevents HRT, so no pharmacy is allowed to prescribe HRT to a minor. Some pharmacies can take that a step farther and just refuse to prescribe HRT altogether. That is their right as a
If they
business.
so choose.
Yes, that is their right as a
Oh,
business. That is how our pharmacies are run.
I see. Okay. So if is that countrywide or is that Bama?
That's statewide. Businesses are run by the state in that
Oh, it's
aspect.
so state specific.
Yes. Yes, we try very hard to keep the federal government out of business in America. It's more the state that interferes with that, and even then, it has to do with regulation, what they're allowed to dish out. Like speaking pharmacies specifically, right now, the only real power a state has over our pharmacies is the ability to control what sort of drugs that pharmacy is allowed to dish out.
So to cl-
So,
to
so if,
sort of
go on.
to sorry, to just to clarify for the SoundClouders when this gets there and the YouTubers, um, for easy math, for me being a Canadian in Toronto, if I drive 8 hours south to New York State as a trans woman who came out 6 years ago, when I came out, I would have to educate myself on New York state law and figure out, or even municipal law, given where I live in that state. And it's a process of elimination to find a pharmacy or maybe even a doctor who will prescribe me HRT even as an adult.
Well, we're speaking Alabama specifically. New
Yeah.
York probably wouldn't have those issues, but should New York apply laws similar to what we're talking about, yeah, it would be a process of elimination. And it is a little more complicated as like your prescriptions would come from Canada. I have never been able to cross the border, so I am unsure as to how that works
No,
for.
I meant if I was a New Yorker.
Oh, well, yeah. If you were a New Yorker and they were to apply similar laws to what we are discussing, yes, it would be a process of elimination. But you are also an adult, so the laws do not bar you from having gender affirming care. They just
Which
bar.
means I can look at my doctor or my pharmacy and
Yes,
say, "Fuck off, give me
no,
my
your
dope."
doctor has the right to say no, which that's where the process of elimination comes from. Because
Now
again,
in the now
doctors like their practices are looked at as businesses. They do not have to they don't have to treat you like that if they do not want
Now,
to.
even though I came out as an adult and say my doctor or my pharmacy challenged me, do I, as an American, if I was, do I have the right to challenge that,
If they decided that they weren't going to prescribe something to you,
or
the
would I just
simplest
find a different
solution
pharmacy?
would just be go to a different doctor and find one
Oh,
that's going
it's
to.
as simple as that. Okay.
Yeah, because even doctors, unfortunately, are allowed to follow their inner morals if they don't want to treat someone for whatever reason. It is their right in America, albeit it goes against their Hippocratic oath. Most doctors in America tend to they keep their Hippocratic oath more at like emergencies.
Hmm.
They will treat anybody in the case of an emergency. But like again, HRT, there are some doctors out there that might not want to do that, and
Hmm.
that's their right, and that's where the process of elimination comes from. But
I guess.
laws such as SB 184 kind of back up the decision and make it more difficult for you to challenge your care provider for not providing appropriate care.
Yeah. I just thought of this. Uh, I might entertain the idea since we're talking about the education system and whatnot. Um, and I mean, I apologize for my naivety in trying to compare a state like New York to one like Alabama. But
Very different states. Very different states.
fucking very. But what I might like to entertain in the future is because I mean I've been at a school for 100 years, and I'm not even in a city where I went to school right now. I've been in Toronto for since 2009, and I graduated high school fucking back in 1876. Um,
I wasn't
but
even alive yet.
well, I'm
Well,
a witch. I'm a witch, so I've been alive for 600 years, so I've seen a lot.
I was just
Um,
off in another body waiting for a unfortunate parent to be like, "I'm your child now."
but in terms of education, I don't know. All I know of, like, if you want to equate state level to provincial level, all I know for here is that in recent years they took something as simple as handwriting out of the curriculum, which I
They've done,
thought was silly.
they've done that
Uh,
here. We still
I don't.
obviously they learn writing, but they took cursive out of our
That's it.
curriculum. They
Yeah,
did not
I
teach
don't know.
cursive.
Like if someone were to like if I went on the street right now and someone asked me uh what the I guess I'll phrase it like if someone asked me what the queer education allowances in Ontario are, I couldn't answer them.
Yeah, I really couldn't answer that here either. I know that like here in Washington specifically, we are a very accepting state. We have a lot of pro LGBT laws here, but
Hmm.
I do not know what our education system is like in talking about that particular subject. Um, I'm young enough to know that the schools I went to were supportive, but we didn't discuss it in class.
The high school I
It
went to
was
is.
very heteronormative, but we did have our gay students and our openly gay individuals.
Hmm.
But from my memory, we never really had any education about LGBT
Hmm.
or just trans concepts in general. I do
Oh,
not know
girl,
what our
same.
education system is like nowadays. Unfortunately, none of my siblings have kids, so I can't really ask them what it's like. I genuinely don't know. But yeah,
Yeah, it's oi, man.
it is a messed up society. My hope is that as time goes on, younger and more open minds start to take over and
Hmm.
start to shift everything in a better for everybody
Well,
direction.
it's all not it's the whole situation isn't dire, right? Um, I'll go back to a personal moment of mine, and we've been bouncing between that, and I really appreciate that.
Jesus, things falling off my wall.
Oh,
It was scary.
oh, it wouldn't be my show if something didn't go all fucked up.
Gravity is working.
Um, but I do appreciate your offering personal moments in this. And another one of mine was when I did come out. Again, I wasn't trans at the time, but I was coming out as a CD, right? And myself and my girlfriend were living with her mom at the time, and I was inching toward it ever so slowly.
Mhm.
Because when me and my girlfriend met, I was a gender bender. I was a gender fucker. I didn't give a fuck. Um, I was so scared to show her mom who I was that I sent her a picture through an email. I I can't hear you.
Oh no, it's all
Oh,
good.
there
It's
you are. Okay. Yeah, it's a I I even as an adult, I was completely petrified. And then I come to find out that my mother-in-law and her entire family welcomed me with open arms in complete contrast to my own family, right? My blood family.
hmm I have a very similar experience. It's not necessarily about, coming out being gay. We have other complications,
Hmm.
but I have a very similar experience. My family doesn't really like what I'm about. They
Your
shouldn't
immediate family?
Yes, they
Okay.
shouldn't have gone. They shouldn't have gone snooping, but they're not. They don't really like what I'm about, and they've kind of disowned me for it.
Mm.
I've had plenty of friends and good family out here in Washington that really accepted me for who I am and what I like to do. So I very much can relate to the concept. It's kind of
Mm.
mind blowing to see how one group of people can be very against something while another
Yeah.
is full support of it.
Oh fuck! When I came out, I made two phone calls. Right. I was on the patio at the house one day, and I called home. I called the house, and I had my dad on the phone, and I asked him if he knew what a crossdresser was, and he said, "Yeah." And he was born what, 44, 45, something like that. He's approaching his 80s now. I said, "Okay, cool." I said, "What would you say if I was one?" He said, "Well, it's your life. I can't tell you how to live it."
It's the best response, in my opinion.
But then 6 years ago, when I called him to tell him to call it to tell him I was a woman, he said, "You're dead to me.
I'm sorry.
Don't be."
But honestly, like, for as bad as I am at admitting, that that's kind of my relationship with my family, that is their choice, not
And the
yours.
funny thing is, my I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth or anything like that, right? But I had Christmas and all the bells and whistles. Um, me and my dad were buddies before I realized who I was. The minute he found out his son was a woman, he said, "You're dead to me."
I am sorry.
But I know why.
Mm,
Interesting story. When my dad was in the Air Force in the Canadian Armed Forces, he told me stories when I was still back on Prince Edward Island. I think he was in Montreal, and he used to tell me stories about when him and his Air Force buddies. I don't know how they did this. I don't know how it was carried out, but somehow they found out where uh, where gay guys lived in Montreal, and what they used to do was home invasions.
mm,
They'd show up to a random person's house, knock on the fucking door or the apartment door. The person would open the door, and they'd fucking clean them out for all they were worth.
mm.
My dad has actively beat the fuck out of fags.
And that is a learned behavior from all the people he was with in the Air Force. Or it was a belief that they carried, and those particular experiences solidified it. If
He was also molested as a child
that also doesn't help.
by a person of the same gender.
Definitely wouldn't help either. That creates resentment.
And what was that? Those were the times when you didn't seek help.
Yeah. Yep. Back to that morality and image, and this is how you're supposed to be.
I offered them support upon support for groups and stuff, right? And their fear was being recognized.
It's a valid fear. It definitely holds people back. I'm not.
But
I'll
is
have
it a
to.
but
I'll have to admit, it is not a foreign fear to me. I definitely can understand that, but
we can understand it, but is it really valid, do you think?
no, that's actually something I've recently learned. Like, you have to confront your fears. You can't ignore them. You have to actually acknowledge that they happened and that you are still here and you're alive because of it.
It's
And
funny because my
you do have to process it and figure out how to live with it. I am not good at that myself. I don't quite understand how you go from this happened and it bothers me to this happened and it doesn't bother me. I
yeah.
don't quite understand it, but it has happened with some things, and for
Mm.
those that choose to, it is possible. You just kind of have to want to.
Now, to bring it back to the Alabama thing, uh, given that I have a partner 10 years deep, and despite the fact that I can't have kids and we don't want them, that's a common decision of both of ours. Uh, I must say that despite the fact that we're Canadian, if we were, I'm gonna include the entire country in this because I think it's important. If me and my partner were parents anywhere in the U.S., but especially in Bama, and living what's going on down there right now, make no mistake, we would be at the fucking town hall or whatever it would take, and we would be breaking down doors saying, "Who the fuck do you think you are?"
And as an American,
And I hope that there are individuals in Alabama who are even attempting to do that.
I can confidently say that day is coming. I do not condone violence or, the harm of any individual, but the day is coming where the American people are going to have enough of this and our voices will be heard.
That reminds me of something. I've been thinking of this the whole time. These new laws are what, a month, couple months old now.
Yeah, about a month and a half old. Yeah.
Okay.
Hold on, let's check. If I know what date they were signed into legislation on April 20th. I wonder what
What's
they all smoked before they decided to sign that paper.
what's the
Yeah, crap.
what's the shelf life on challenging or overturning policies?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not super knowledgeable over that process.
Mm,
Due to the way that our system of checks and balances worked, when they initially tried to pass these laws a year ago, the state Supreme Court intervened and said this is unconstitutional. Particularly gender affirming care. Like the actual court of the state did say you can't do this. I didn't really get too deep into the research for it to figure out how it got undone, but I'm assuming
yeah,
it
how the
has to
fuck
do
does that work?
I'm assuming it has to do again with our systems of checks and balances. So if we pass a law and the Supreme Court says, no, you can't do this, it takes like a majority vote of the state Senate or something to overrule that decision. Or they can send the law back and they can change it ever so slightly so that it's worded better, and then the Supreme
Mm.
Court will allow it. One of those two was the outcome. It's very weird. I don't get it.
Now that's interesting too, because this happened at state level. Was when in the I guess in the creation of a law, um, barring the overturning of something,
Mm.
when what's the role in the top court, or do they have one when you know what I mean? Like,
Our cards more work on appeal basis. So
okay,
I'm going to use our national system because our state systems are very representative of our national system.
uh,
So we've got the Supreme Court on our national level. What the Supreme Court does is when the House and the Senate agree to pass a bill and it gets through and it's about to be written into law, the Supreme Court reads through it and make sure that the law is written in a way that adheres to our Constitution.
hmm,
So basically, they're there to make sure our constitutional rights don't get violated. If those rights are violated, they send it back to the Senate, and the Senate has to rewrite that law in a way that doesn't violate our Constitution. Sometimes that ends up scrapping the law altogether. Sometimes they just remove a couple bits. And sometimes morality plays a role because we have a very conservative Supreme Court here. Now, that has to do with just the passing of laws. If the state can pass a law and the law is not seen as unconstitutional, then the Supreme Court serves a different role. That's where you start appealing that law at the state level, and you work your way up from a local court to a county court to the state court to the Supreme State Court, and you can appeal all the way up to the federal court.
hmm.
But you got to go through that appeal process. So the process of overturning a law, I won't lie, it's easier to wait 10 years and then write a new law that kind of makes the old one irrelevant because you'll spend 10 years in court attempting to appeal it in the first place.
Hmm.
So the
Are you
process,
for real?
yes, it is. There is a process for overturning it, but it is so ridiculously complicated that, like I said, it would be better to give our senators and representatives term limits and just wait the 10 years and write something new that makes it irrelevant.
So
Because
the appeal process can be a decade deep.
yes,
What
for
the
normal things such as
fuck?
like criminal stuff too, if you're
Oh,
truly
for
innocent
sure.
and you're found guilty of a crime, That's going to take 10 years. Enjoy yourself. No disrespect to you, but like enjoy your time in jail because you're not getting out anytime soon.
Mm, mm.
And it's even more complicated with law because then advocacy groups can get involved. So it's not just this group supporting the bill. This group that's against the bill can also get involved in the arguments because it is a civil matter, not a private matter.
So how do you given what we're talking about, even though we're approaching the 2 month mark on these protocols, um, again, given my Canadian naivety, um, do we see like how much power does the South have? Like, can we see so much shit being kicked up over this that the powers that be above the state level say, okay, no, 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 you gotta fucking reverse this shit,
That would depend on how
or is that wishing upon a star?
that would depend on how willing the people above the state level are to do something about it. So
Okay.
this gets into more of our national politics and some of the problems that we have with things lobbying and gerrymandering. So to answer your question of how do these people have so much power, they gerrymander. So when you
Mm.
look at a map, you know how you have your little local districts. You know, this is insert county name, this is this county, this is this county, and all of these counties together make this block of territory, you know,
Yeah.
which we call this. Um, Sorry, my brain's derailing again. Gerrymandering. So what they like to do is they will gerrymander, and in our House of Representatives, the number of representatives you have is based on your population of the area. So, for example, California has a fuck ton of representatives because they have a fuck ton of people that live there. Although the majority of those people live in Los Angeles County in comparison to the rest of the state. Los Angeles County, San Francisco, San Diego, all of those areas tend to be very blue and very progressive and very Democrat. The rest of the state, not so much.
What
So,
just
they,
for my own just for my own clarity, you mentioned LA County and stuff and the Bay Area. Are those I guess those are the two heavy hitting areas politically?
they are the heavy hitting areas population wise.
Okay, cool.
Those
Okay.
cities have a higher density of population than the rest of the state. Now, this is
So
where gerrymandering gets fucked up. Those areas of the state only have like maybe five. I'm probably wrong on this, but they've got like maybe 5 or 10 representatives grand total that represent those millions of people that live in those densely populated areas. Whereas the rest of the state has all their own representatives for all the other districts that are more rural and country layout
mhm.
um, than the cities are.
For
And
those, and not to interrupt Kitsuni, but for those that are unaware of their North American geography, we're talking about two cities that are in the state of California on the western coast of the USA.
Um, now, what they do when they gerrymander is they take that huge state, and I'm going to use California as an example, and
Hmm.
they carve out little districts that our representatives that sit in our house represent. And unfortunately,
Not
with
not counties, but districts.
districts, yes, and
Okay.
districts can be drawn through counties, and this is where gerrymandering becomes a problem. So
Hmm.
you'll have a very heavily dense city. And on the south or on the north side, that's where all the white people live. And on the south side, that's where all the not white people live. And so when they gerrymander, they'll cut that county in half. And they'll have the lower half or the upper half of this county here and the lower half of this county here, which is predominantly white and conservative, be represented by one person, and then they'll cut all of these counties out into a different little system which is represented by somebody else. So they will purposely set the districts so that when that district votes, it falls to the color that they want. Coming full circle to how all of this
What?
happens, that's how it happens. They for lack of a better description, American politicians pick their voters. Their
that
voters do not pick them.
that almost sounds what you're describing almost sounds like the electoral college, but at a state fucking level, at
Yes,
a
that's
district
exactly what
level.
it is. It's exactly what it is. It's very, very similar to the concept of the Electoral College, but it is used to carve out voting regions of the state so that way your district falls the way you want it. You may have like, God, I wish I had the visual from it. I really
So
wish I had the visual because it's easier to explain how it works with a visual. But
so to entertain an idea, the Electoral College can be whittled down to this district concept that you're talking about.
yes, because the Electoral College is directly affected by that district. A lot of our states have a winner take all. So if you
Is it done like that, or am I just being hypothetical?
no, it's very similar. It's not exactly correlated, but it is
Okay.
very, very similar. So like
Fuck.
California, for example, all
Yeah.
that red area and you got that blue area, right? If more red votes, meaning like you have more red votes for the state than you do
Mhm.
blue votes,
Mhm.
the entire state goes red. And
Mhm.
they will award, for the presidential election, they will award all of those electorates, which are based on the gerrymandered counties, to the person that the state takes. And this is where states like Georgia and Alabama, really come into play
That's right.
because all
Okay.
of their major red area is it's actually not really populated. There's not a lot of people out there. It's very country bumpkin,
Yep.
farmland, open space, private property. Most of the people live in the dense cities, and those
Right.
cities, albeit more population, they do
Mhm.
not carry the same representative value in our Senate and our House than the rest of the state. And that is how that is how, again, how those morals and the religious fundamentals interfere in what's going on. Because even though a million people in one city say we want to vote blue, 100,000 people in all of those other cities can overpower them because there's less people to vote blue in those cities. They're more likely to vote red. And so they do it based on land and district versus actual popular vote. And that is how a lot of these fundamentals keep getting implemented because they just keep carving out more and more and more of the county to keep the votes swinging in the way that we want them to. If we were to do our
The
elections
way
based off of popular vote, we
they want them to.
yeah, if we were to do our elections based off of sole popular vote, no districts, no electorates, no nothing like that, we would be an incredibly blue nation.
Well, that's how the haircut got his presidency,
Yeah,
because he fucking lost.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean that exactly. That is exactly, and they both affect both a state and a national level. And because like even those representatives, not only do they represent us on a national level, you also have local representatives from those same districts
Hmm.
which run the state senate and the state house and the state court. So every state has their own version of the federal system.
So we can only wish upon a star, to go back to the youth issue, that maybe, hopefully, would you like to wish on a star? Carry moonbeams home in a jar. That somebody, somewhere, at some level, will look at Alabama and go, "What the fuck are you smoking?"
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's happened. People have been, dude, what's wrong with you? People have asked, but again, this is where our federal government can't necessarily interfere in state regulation like that. That's why, like,
Can't
marijuana
they?
is still, no, they can't. Kind of. I mean, okay, let's use marijuana real quick.
They
Easy
can
explanation.
here,
Marijuana is still illegal on a federal level. But we've got plenty of states in the nation
not
that can
here.
sell it recreationally. So like if the feds wanted to, they could go raid one of the pot farms up here all they fucking want. But then the federal government has to get into a legal battle with the state government. And if the state government is paying federal income taxes on it, the feds don't really have a right to bitch because we're doing what's necessary. So it's just a base example of like our federal government can set blanket terms across the board. That's
Mhm.
why things like civil rights and housing rights and liberties and whatnot, we tend to enshrine that in our federal government because
Mm.
those are the core values that all of the states need to follow. The states themselves can set their own laws based on our federal constitution. I don't quite understand how we did the marijuana one. I think the states literally just went like, We don't care. Don't raid us. We're not. You can't raid in our state unless we tell you, because that is
Mm,
a thing in our federal government. If the feds are going to raid a location, they have to inform the state
mm,
so that the state knows what they're doing. It's a weird checks and balance thing. So if the state doesn't want to acknowledge a raid for a marijuana farm, feds technically can't do anything about it, and then it
mm.
becomes a violation of power and territory, and that's a whole nother conversation.
It makes
But
me.
yeah, it's interesting. So like they can set blanket terms, but we can still set our own rules. If our internal rules violate federal principle, that's where our court can say you can't do this. It violates
Uh,
federal policy. And that comes back to our appeal systems, and it's a very roundabout bureaucracy red tape system
mm.
here.
Speaking of bureaucracy and everything and red tape, I forget if I was out or not when this was passed. It was a handful of years ago. And for those who are unaware, you may or may not be aware of the guy that runs our country, Justin Trudeau, son of Pierre Elliott. Guy that runs our country is our country province is Doug Ford, conservative majority. Um, and do with that what you will. I'm not here to get into a political fight, but going to something Trudeau did in recent years, and this caught attention. Again, I don't know. I forget if I was out at the time, but for Canada, and you may or may not call this a controversial move, but in terms of rights and freedoms, he put those of the LGBTQ community above those of the religious people.
Mm-hmm. As you should. I don't mean to be rude to those that are religious,
No,
but
no,
I'm
no,
going to be blunt and direct. Y'all believe in a make believe deity. There is no proof of it.
no. It's
Faith
the
is,
biggest
faith
fairy
is
tale that
one,
ever lived, or
faith
like
is
ever
one thing.
existed.
I get believing in something bigger than yourself.
Uh huh.
But when it comes to religion versus someone's physical rights,
To exist.
the tangible product is more important.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the physical rights and safety of your fellow humans are more important than any belief you may have because your imaginary friend told you.
Mm.
Sorry.
Don't apologize. Yeah.
Hold on, let me sass it up some more. Hold on. Sorry, not sorry. There we go. But it's definitely it's interesting to see these kind of laws in America in today's day and age. Not to be mean to some of the more Eastern countries,
Mm-mm.
but their values are different than ours. So naturally, they're going to have enshrined those kind of laws. But we're not supposed to be like that. And it's just it's really shameful to see that it's happening. And like I said, I'm hopeful that as time goes on, the elders start to wean out of politics and younger individuals come in and kind of overturn what's going on, even if it's through creating laws that void old laws, because we can do
Mm.
that. Our
Well,
laws are
well,
based on when they're written and when they're, codified into law. So if we have a law from 2019 and we write a law in 2024 that makes it obsolete, that is how that will be referred to.
well. Once again, what Kitsune is saying. I refer back to my words earlier in saying that throughout history, these ideologies and these policies have targeted the age of majority, right? The adults of the queer population, and now the game is completely fucking changed based on one state.
Well, other states have, like I said, other states have brought laws like this into existence as well. Alabama's anti-LGBT and trans laws were actually a case of hold my beer, watch this. Because Florida had already passed theirs, which was controversial to begin with. Same, pretty much the same situation as Alabama, went through the same process, same explanation, same fundamentals. But Alabama's was a little bit more rigid
Where
and
where was that? Sorry.
Florida.
Did Florida try to do this too, or
Yes,
did
Florida
they?
actually did successfully pass their "Don't Say Gay" bill. That's what like Disney's in
That's
trouble
where that
with right
was.
now. Yeah,
Okay.
that's why Disney is in trouble because Disney officially came out against the bill.
Why?
Um,
What's up with Disney?
Disney thinks that you should be able to talk about LGBT concepts in schools.
Okay.
Disney is in support of the LGBT community, mostly because half of their staff threatened to quit.
Oh well, three cheers for Disney then.
Yes, and that actually created its own slew of backlash. You know, Florida wants to remove Disney's self-governing privileges. You know, like they're coming after Disney for doing it because in Florida, Disney is a major source of revenue for them.
Mm.
And having Disney side against the law, they're just butthurt and trying to make Disney's life difficult. That's what it is. But coming full circle, Florida had all of this, and Alabama was like, "Hold my beer, watch this. Let me. I see your law, and I raise you some more. Let's do it."
Isn't
And
that funny?
it was just it's one of those situations, and unfortunately, it's gonna keep happening until something is done. I don't know what that something's gonna be. I'd rather have a peaceful option. I'm hoping maybe the states themselves, the individuals, have enough of an issue with what their leaders are doing that maybe they'll wake up for an election cycle and be like, maybe I won't vote Republican simply because I've always voted Republican. Maybe I'll vote for the guy that's smart. You know, maybe they'll do that, but I don't think that that's going to happen. Like I said, I think we're going to have to wait 10 years until younger and more open-minded individuals can start running because the old individuals are just too old to move around themselves.
So can we maybe hope that there's a glimmer of optimism to come out of all this?
Oh, there is, because what this will do is it'll piss off three generations that don't necessarily agree with what grandma and grandpa are doing. There are many Xers out there that do not agree with this. There are even more millennials out there that do not agree with this. And let's not even talk about what the Zoomers have to say about it, because Zoomers don't care about gender.
Right?
They don't. They don't. Zoomers have gotten over this whole identity thing and they seem to be back on the attitude of bitch work. Make your money and work. That seems to be
And
the Zoomer attitude. They don't care. So
and we can bleed that into our community, the dance community.
yeah. And so that's why like I firmly believe we just like for as bullshit as the next decade's gonna be, we'll just wait for the old people to not be able to walk anymore. They'll be too embarrassed to be wheeled in on a wheelchair and pretend that they're still important. They'll try and pick some young hotshot that doesn't know how to lie to the nation, and it'll fail. And we'll have new people that actually have good ideas step into place, and hopefully things will get better in an
Yeah.
ideal world.
I hope. Well, I'm only 44. Optimistically speaking, I hope I'm alive to see it, whether it be the U.S. or here in Canada. Despite the fact that I guess, no disrespect, that we seem to be a more free neighborhood.
Everywhere is more free, relatively. At least from what I like to do with my life, everywhere else has more freedom than I do.
I was talking to my dad a while ago, like years ago, and he was we were talking about back on PEI, Prince Edward Island, where I was born and grew up, and he was telling me how things have changed and whatnot. And I said, so basically, what you're telling me is if I was in Charlottetown, the capital of PEI, and if I was at X bar, looking basically how I do now, and if I leave that bar and go to another bar down the block or whatever it is, I said, based on what you're telling me, I'm not going to cop a beating. And he said, well, I can't guarantee that. Then how much has my province changed? It has changed. You know what? I'll eat my own words because it has changed in a lot of ways. And it's all part and parcel because of a group called the PEITN, the Prince Edward Island Trans Network.
Mm.
And my friend Alana runs it. She created it. Alana is an absolute sweetheart. And she had, how old would he be now? He's about 14, 15 years old, I guess, by now. Maybe older, I don't know. But the PEITN was created because of her trans son. I used to be part of the group, even though I live here, and it was a safe space. And it's important for places like PEI because it doesn't exist back there.
Yeah.
You still get violent. There was what last year I think it was, or whenever it was. There was phobic behavior at the high school level during something called Spirit Week back home.
I remember Spirit Week.
And the work that Alana and her friends have done, they're all moms, right? They have gone to the provincial government level to fight for the things that we're talking about now, and it's worked.
Mm-hmm.
PEI is sitting up and taking notice and going, okay, we got to do some shit here.
Mm-hmm. And that is another thing. You do have to bring these problems to the public eye, and you have to do it the right way so that the public actually perceives it. And that is another challenge, again, because of morals and fundamentalism, but also just because it's really hard to actually get that kind of message out there right
Mm.
now. It's very difficult to start something like that and actually have it be meaningful, because for every organization that to comment on something Reorganized said in chat, for every organization we can start, you can have another organization like Westboro Baptist Church create a lobbying company to fight your cause. And
Mm.
unfortunately, they have access to a lot more resources than some of the more grassroots projects do, and that is a huge conflict in the way that things work here. And again, that ties back into like lobbying and where the money actually comes from.
You
And
keep on that thought. I'm going to go for a quick bathroom break.
all right, I will talk to chat. Hi, chat. How's everybody doing? Thank you all for hanging out. Thank you for joining us on our conversation about LGBT politics and, oh, the good old fucked up nation of America. Hmm. Now we're going to sit in awkward silence while I smoke a bowl. Mama Claire will probably be back before I get the bowl loaded, so we'll see. America is fucked. As I said, I never thought I'd see laws like this, and well, I know the American attitude. This is not going to bode well for anybody in the future. It's gonna suck. Hey, I'll move back to the UK. I'll pay Her Majesty the tax ratio my ancestors didn't want to. And you guys like hard dance a lot more than they do here in America. I'd be right at home. Find me a job in a coffee shop. Got you. Mm-mm.
I'm going to work. I'm going to work. Guys,
Mama Claire forgot to mute her microphone.
I just told him, he just texted me now. I said, I'll get there when I can. Just tell her that. Like, texting her, and I told her, I said, I'm not coming in. She texted me, I said, I'll get there when I can.
We have on today's docket.
Fucking racing. When are you gonna be done this? Because this apartment is so stuffy right now and so hot. I want to turn the AC on so loud. That thing is so loud. Do it. Because I'm dying.
I can't see it interfering too badly.
It's like, oh my god.
Should be okay. Hello, sorry everybody.
Welcome back.
Fine fucking radio host I am, leaving for a fucking pee break in the middle of my own show.
Nah, it happens. The real mistake is you forgot to mute your mic.
Was anything fun picked up? I know
I just heard talking. I was just like, oh, that's a good microphone. Hell yeah.
It really is, because
Very good microphone.
the
What I got.
my TV is 4 feet that way.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. We
Yeah,
have an open concept, and the part I broadcast in, it's literally half of the apartment, and we call it no man's land.
I hide in the little corner of my pop out. So like, as you can see, my TV is behind me, but like my little 4-foot box right where I'm sitting, this is computer stream office space.
Again, to go back to, and I mean, I know we've I guess we've bounced around, kind of bastardizing, or leaning to and coming away from the core issue, which is the youth thing in Alabama. But to once again dip into the personal story thing, back in my hometown again, and this leans toward not knowing who one is, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can remember, and you may or may not be able to even relate to this yourself, Kit. I can remember being in Summerside, my hometown, and I'll be downtown having a coffee at Tim Hortons or whatever, and I knew this older guy. He was in his 40s or whatever, however the fuck old he was, I don't know. Just an old queen in town, and he worked at a hardware store. And on his lunch breaks, he would just take a drive and get a coffee and whatever, and just cruise around for half an hour, just having his day. And we met just through happenstance, and we meshed well and all that sort of idea. And if he would see me sitting on the steps of the coffee shop, he would go down the street and wave hi to me as he would drive by, but then he would pull a Yui, come back and pick me up in the parking lot, and we'd just go for a drive. And I say that because there was the odd time where those drives didn't happen in daylight. And I don't mean anything lascivious by saying that. What I mean is there was, and I should say that these were the times in the 90s when, especially in my hometown, there were no fucking gay bars, right? There was a gay population, a queer population, but we didn't see them at the fucking clubs. I saw a friend of mine once who was older than me. I saw him out once on a weekend in my from being 19 to 23 when I moved away. But going back to my friend in the car, there was a road in my hometown which was, unless you live under a rock, you're going to know what cruising territory means. And that is regardless of where you're from. I will relate George Michael to that, but that's a different day, because everyone who knows anything knows what he done. Anyway, this one street in my hometown, it was on the edge of town, and that was where they cruised. And one night, me and my friend pulled in. We weren't pulling in for any specific reason. We weren't doing anything of the community. He just wanted to pull over and have a joint. That's all it was.
Right.
But the funny thing was, we pulled up behind a car. We didn't know who the fuck it was. So they come back, and turns out he knew them. So there was a bit of a conversation going on, whatever. But that's what it was. And it was so cool if you want to talk about simpler times and these sort of ideas, right? Because even though I didn't know who I was, even though I knew what I enjoyed, right? Because behind closed doors, dressing like a girl made me feel warm inside in those days. Hanging out with Aubrey and the fact that he was gay didn't even occur to me. We were just friends having a drive and having a smoke.
I remember my days like that when I was younger. Looking back, I'm like, oh, that's what was potentially maybe happening. but they were still a good friend. And then I still find myself falling victim to that same mindset today sometimes. But
Re,
I
re,
definitely
re,
can relate.
reorganizing the chat saying George Cruz by foot. He was a man. He was a man. I know he was a man's man. Yes, he was caught cottaging,
Mm.
to use UK language. But anyway, sorry, I totally cut you off there, kid.
No, it's all good. I started rambling, but no, I can
No,
relate.
ramble all you like, my love.
Like I'm too young to actually remember those times. I'm a millennial kid. I turned 10 at the turn of the millennium. So
Are you under?
actual
I don't.
90s.
I'm not good at math. Are you under 30?
I'm 32.
Oh, okay. Oh, I've
So
got.
like I was a kid in the 90s. And then like I said, I grew up in a bubble. So I didn't really experience anything like that until I had gotten out of the house and on my own. But there are definitely like I caught the ass end of that type of vibe, and
Mhm.
I do kind of remember the more simpler times and exchanges in the community.
Mm.
So I definitely can relate to that story in that aspect.
Mm. Yeah, and it's weird too when I think back to those days because I've told anyone who would listen that like in terms of now, right? And I guess we can loosely maybe relate this to the topic of today, in that when I even attempt to tell people about who I am and what I've experienced, I don't say what I've gone through. I say what I've experienced. Um, I'm not scared of a lot of things today. One example being words. I use all the words openly that I'm not supposed to say according to pop culture. And there's a reason for that. Because I grew up with family and friends who didn't give a shit. I remember my late cousin was telling me a story where someone looked at him and went, "Oh, you're such a fucking fag," or something like this. And he goes, "Yeah, and." So that's why I'm not scared today to use words like fag and tranny and like dyke and whatever, right? And I'm not scared of it, which is in complete contrast to a lot of the community now.
Because they will grow up with that fear, because it will be ingrained upon them from a young age when they're most impressionable and
Mhm.
moldable.
I learned like most of my knowledge from the queer community comes from being exposed to my queer family, my cousins.
For me, most of my knowledge comes from A, paying attention to our politics, but B, my experiences.
Mm,
I don't know everything there is to know. I know what I've experienced.
that's it.
But
Well, exactly. Yeah. Boom.
it's I had to learn about the culture by experiencing it. And
Mm,
I think for the future generations, if we're trying to normalize and accept the culture, to use bad words, sorry everybody,
mm,
um, I think open discussion needs to take place. You should be able to talk about it. You shouldn't have to limit those types of differences when
mhm,
discussing stuff in the class. I feel that, if the byproduct of making them ashamed of it from a young age is going to make them grow up to not accept themselves and not openly talk about it, then the byproduct is that if you do teach about it, they'll be more accepting about it.
mm,
Everybody has concepts in their life, things they think are completely fucking normal that everybody does.
mm.
Find out that somebody does it a little bit differently, and you're like, what?
Well, that could
but
it.
but but it doesn't bother you.
Yeah.
You find it more like, oh, that's cute, that's weird. What do you mean you do this weird mundane task this way? It's one of those just quirky things. And I feel that, like, if we normalized the discussion and normalized the presence of this and just treated it like we treat everything else, that's what it would be perceived at by others should they find out later in life. They'll be more open to the conversation if they haven't experienced it. I'm not saying everybody needs to know about it. I'm saying that if you're not going to directly tell them, then properly prepare them to discover it in the future.
And this, I guess, would go back to your ideology of uh, everybody older than us buying the farm.
Yeah. Yeah, again, this is like I said, I firmly believe it is just a lot of old people striking back on they're
Not
like
not 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 to take away from the older population who
yeah,
do think like me and you do.
yeah, no, and that is being kept in mind. I'm not saying
Mm,
everybody of the older generation thinks like this. A good
yeah.
half of the older generation doesn't.
Mm.
So, but again, that this problem is it's a systemic problem and we have to take measures to fix it, but this systemic problem was created by this concept of what
Traditional
does it yes.
values.
Yes, there's a beautiful musical about why adhering to tradition is not always the best thing to do. If you
Oh,
have not watched it, go watch Fiddler on the Roof. Amazing musical. Seen it many times.
Fiddler, really?
Yes, that's one of the core principles of Fiddler on the Roof is the breaking of tradition.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, the daughters not marrying through the matchmaker, them going off to live their own life, the tragedy that they feel is happening because of the break of tradition. It's one of the underlying stories being told in the musical.
Hmm.
And it's a very interesting story when you think about it because tradition is a good thing. Knowing where you come from and how you got to where you are is a good thing, but adhering to archaic tradition is not. That's why we don't do human sacrifice anymore.
Hmm.
Just saying, like, yeah, we used to do that at every full moon, depending on what culture you're from. I don't know. I'm just making
Fuck.
stuff up. But my point is we grew beyond that line of thinking.
Yes.
And with other traditions, that is something that needs to happen. And religious tradition is one of those. What you do in the privacy of your own house is your business. What helps you feel good about your misdoings is your business.
See,
That's your right. But if other people have different ways of doing that or different ways of enjoying themselves or different ways of living on this planet, just because your morals say it's wrong, as long as they're not physically hurting people, you don't have the right to interfere.
now you're leaning kind of into the ideologies of Satanism.
It's I mean I don't that's my personal belief. I don't
No, you
really
just happen to be. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I don't know, I don't really follow any particular
Yeah.
like I in interaction I try to be like very Buddhist in my approach to people. Think about what you're saying, be
I,
kind, be courteous, compliment when you can. um
I,
religious, I'm pagan. I like the aspect of the ritual and the
oh, yay.
time taken to actually put your thought and manifest what you want out of reality.
That's,
I feel it gives you a moment to draw on when you're having your doubts. You have
mm,
that moment to know I did something about this, and it helps you press forward. So those are my personal religious values, and one of the major things of paganism is the rule of three. What you do to others comes back to you threefold. So
yes. Yeah.
I've just kind of developed this morality of like, personally, as long as you're not hurting anybody, violating anybody, or needlessly hating people, I don't really fucking care what you do. It's your life, whatever floats your boat, you do you.
I
That's my
think
personal
we've,
take.
I think we've, indirectly until this point, uh, skated the line between the purpose of the show and relating our personal lives to it and our personal experiences and what that could or couldn't mean in a hopeful sense
Yeah.
to what potentially can come of this in Alabama. Um, and given that, what I do kind of want to dip into uh, because of my sheer curiosity, and maybe it'll relate, maybe it won't. But I do want to maybe ask you about you. You've mentioned in sprinkles your life in Hollywood.
Ah.
Tell me a little bit about that, if you will.
Well, I was very homeless in
Not
Hollywood.
not not to make this an interview, but
Oh no, it's all good. Honestly, I kind of figured this would happen at one point.
because I'm going to say this directly to the camera. This is not a fucking interview.
Hi.
So,
This is where we're talking. Don't worry, because honestly, my experiences in Hollywood very much kind of shaped a lot of the views that I have. So it is kind of relative a little bit.
well, the floor is
Um,
yours. Yeah,
so
please.
I was homeless in Hollywood. Wonderful movie title, Hollywood. I get the movie rights to that. My idea. You heard it here.
Now, how far back are we going?
I was homeless in Hollywood, 2000. I gotta think.
Early
Late
2000s?
2008 to about 2012 ish.
Oh, so right on the cusp of when I got to Toronto because I moved here '09.
Yeah, yeah. I showed up
Okay.
like I said, like 2000, yeah, 8 ish,
Hmm.
late 2008, like Christmas 2008 time, I think.
Okay. I'm cutting you off. Go ahead.
Left somewhere in 2011, early 2012.
Hmm.
Very homeless. I tended to kick it on Hollywood Boulevard, Walk of Fame.
Yep.
That was my stomping ground. I absolutely loved every second of it. For me, it was like experiencing freedom, mentioning my bubble. That was my first exploration out of my bubble. No rules, no overbearing parents, the only trouble I got in was when the cops came after me. So you learn very quickly what to do and what not to do, But I could do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, within social normality. And it was an absolutely lovely experience. I wouldn't trade it for, I traded for a couple things, but I wouldn't really trade it for much. And even then, the experiences I had more shaped my views of how people should be treated.
Hmm.
Um, and what real equality is,
What
and
what
any of it.
did even though we're vastly away from the days of uh like the glory days of the Sunset Strip in terms of like the Troubadour and all these kind of clubs and stuff. What did Hollywood look like when you were there?
Well, when I first showed up, it was very, very shiny and
Hmm.
new and big and different than Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It was,
Milwaukee.
yes, Milwaukee,
What?
yes, Milwaukee, Skansen. Uh, so like it was
You
over.
went there.
Oh, I did. Oh, I did.
Skansen.
Skansen,
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee. Don't you know? Ofta.
Don't don't you fucking know?
Oh, don't you know? My neighbors are from Minnesota.
I love it. I love it. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, no, it's all good. But like, I really enjoyed the city. It took a couple months for the shiny to wear off as I settled into the area, and that's when like the social growth started happening. And for as much as I enjoyed it, it kind of really opened my eyes because as the holier than thou people, like we've got a holier than thou person that works at work who just thinks she is the bee's knees. And she was trying to talk herself up to me one day. And like one of the things I really learned on the streets has stuck with me. And it's and no disrespect to anybody listening or anybody that might hear this in the future, but I've learned a lot of human beings are fucking selfish and self-righteous. They think their shit don't stink, and when they think nobody is looking, that's when you can see who someone truly is. As someone who's homeless, I've experienced the way that, as we refer to them as inside people, treat homeless people when they think no one's looking. There are good people out there that'll help you. They'll get you food. They'll hear your stories. They'll
Mm-hmm.
sit and smoke their blunt with you. They'll kick
Mm-hmm.
it with you. They'll laugh with you. They'll have a good time. And those moments are amazing. They bring hope when you're in that situation. They bring a light that kind of keeps you driving forward.
Mm.
But there's also those people that'll stomp on you and try to rob you and try to take advantage of you and try to steal from you and pressure you into doing things that you don't want to and putting you in really dangerous situations just for their personal pleasure. And it's very interesting to see the morality of human beings. And this is one of the reasons why I feel that like the morality we teach people from a young age really plays into who they are as an adult and how they will inevitably treat people as they come into their own independence, where where the fear of mom and dad and whatever the parental retaliation, or excuse me, reaction is to your misdoings, um, starts to wane. You know, there's a point where that stops. And as people come into their own independence, the morality that they're taught and the lessons that they're taught really play into how they treat people. And people will use situations like that to, well, practice. Sorry for my lack of words, but you know, they'll experiment. They'll try to, you know, see what it's about, and it can be a really dangerous and demeaning place to see what people really think about the homeless. And that really got me on the concept of like, no, you should treat a human being like a human being.
Mm.
I understand people have misfortune. I understand that sometimes you can't actually help them, but that's no reason to be mean to them. You shouldn't be mean to somebody because of who they are, where they are, or what they do, providing they're not hurting anybody or needlessly hating on people for arbitrary reasons outside of their control. Racists.
Mhm.
And but sorry, moving away from the drama, beyond that, being down in Hollywood was just an eye-opening experience. I got to meet a lot of people. I worked as a background actor for central casting, so I did get to do a couple TV shows and a couple movies and see what the extra work is like. I discovered DJing down there, and Hollywood is kind of where Kitsune came into creation and where that whole journey started.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it was a wonderful experience. I really liked it.
Did you, and maybe this is maybe this might be a stupid question, but when you were in Hollywood, and I'm in contact with a few people there, um, but in your experience, and I can almost predict your answer, did you encounter, because it exists here, and I'm sure anywhere, I'm sure you encountered any one of a number of queer individuals who had nowhere and no one. Oh, that was you. You were one of these people.
Yeah, I left home, and that's kind of when I accepted myself and didn't really have anything. I showed up and
Did
I
you did
survived.
did
But
did
I
you
met a lot of other people in the same situation as
did you
well.
leave or were you kicked out?
I was kicked out
Okay.
for
And
reasons not my orientation, but you know,
okay.
still I was new to the concept. It felt very well timed. You know,
Now,
looking
now,
at it.
now, given that, when you got to the strip, let's say, um, did you, despite how you got there, did you all of a sudden feel a sense of, oh, I can be fucking me?
Yes. Oh
Yeah,
yes. Yes. Well,
I
I
am
felt a sense
fucking
of
me and fuck
being.
everybody.
Here's how I describe it. Like I needed to learn who I was, like,
And
because
and
I'm kind of going through a secondary sense of self acceptance right now. But this was more the like learning who I am as not in the child aspect. You know, I had a very overbearing, controlling, authoritarian family structure. So
mhm.
I never really got to explore or try anything or do anything or go anywhere.
Yeah, right.
Or if it wasn't school, I didn't get to do it. And it's just like, I want to go
Oh,
out and have fun. I
yeah.
want to go see a techno show. I want to go to a concert. Let's go to the mall, and that like stuff like that just never happened.
Well,
So to actually,
how did you make money to get from day to day?
I developed quite a lucrative hustle while I was in Hollywood.
Were you a squeegee
Uh,
kid or?
no, actually, I would climb. There's palm trees everywhere in Los Angeles,
Oh,
everywhere.
really?
So I would just climb the palm trees. I'd cut a couple of the, you know, fans open, but you cut them before the fan opens.
Ah,
And I would go sit on Hollywood Boulevard in this little doorway in this little old lady's shop. And she knew what I was doing. And like when the cops would come and try to tell me to move, she'd come out and be like, no, 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 he's okay. You leave him alone.
what
And
were
she'd
you
go
doing?
back. Uh, So what I would do is I'd make palm roses, basically origami with palm leaves. And I'd make
Oh,
little roses and little hearts. And when the Orthodox Jews came out, I busted out a couple Star of Davids because they loved to pay $20 for those.
you
So
fucking angel.
yeah, so that was my little hustle, and the best part is palm doesn't fall apart like leaves do. They petrify. So as long as you put it somewhere and you don't really touch it, it will stay like that until your dying day.
And you let these go for what, $20 a pop, you said?
No, I let them go for tips. I
Oh,
learned
tip.
which
Okay.
group of people tends to tip more, but I would just, it's like one day I'm gonna base a stream around this concept because I actually had a friend go to Hollywood and take a picture of this specific location where I would do this from like eyesight level, right? So
Hmm.
I'm just gonna kind of recreate my old Spain spot. And I'm just gonna sit and kind of make fun of past me. But I used to have a laptop and a MIDI controller, and I would do very crappy DJ mixes, and I would make palm roses in between, each mix, and I'd put them down, and I'd just kind of sit and jam out and have fun. And people would come by and be like, "Are you selling these?" And I'd be like, "No, they're worth whatever you think they're worth. If you think it's worth $1, that's cool. If you think it's worth 20, that's cool. If you want to trade a flower for a flower, I love weed and that's cool. If you want to
That
give me a
is
beer, that's cool. Save me the trip to the store."
that is the sweetest fucking thing.
Yeah, and that was literally like that is how I made money. I was one of the more well-paid street kids. Like
It
all my friends kind of had to sit and wait and do the sign thing, and I kind of actively engaged, and I only really had to panhandle 2 or 3 days a week.
Did you ever to go back to, and again, I don't mean to youngify you, but
uh,
um
I'm still young at heart.
I hear you, honey. um I'm familiar with basically every hair band out of the 80s, and one of my favorites is, I think it's, oh, I forget who I think it's Poison. I think it's Poison. Stepped off the bus out into the city streets with her whole life packed in a suitcase by her feet.
Yep.
Did you
Pretty
experience a
much.
moment of that at all?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
for real,
Yes.
huh?
Oh, I walked into Hollywood from
Fallen Angel by Poison.
was I think I was in like Monterey or something like that. I was a couple cities over.
Hmm.
And that situation wasn't working for me. So I packed all my stuff up and I walked the 40 miles to Hollywood Boulevard. And I literally walked down to Hollywood Boulevard with my life in a suitcase, being like, well, this is where I live until I figure it out. And then 2 years later, I left and came up here.
Lights didn't seem to shine as bright as they did on her mama's TV screen.
Mm.
Uh, just in terms of superficiality, because you've lived it, is there a difference between uh, the Hollywood Boulevard that I would expect and what is?
What do you expect Hollywood Boulevard to be? Because in my experience, people's expectation tend to depend on the time of day it is.
Because I've actually been told in real time that the Hollywood Strip isn't what I think it is.
Well, what do you think it is?
Sunshine and fucking rainbows. A tourist.
Well, it's very okay. So it's very
Is there like an air, like, I don't know how long the street is. I mean, to be fucking completely blunt, like, is there a
like a
point on
mile.
that street where I would go from the touristy area to like what real life is, I guess,
Yes,
so to speak?
yes,
Is
yes,
there?
yes, yes. It's called Western.
Oh, it's a neighborhood.
No, it's an actual street. There's a very definitive street where Hollywood Boulevard, as you guys know it, with the stars and all that, it
Okay.
ends. And it becomes more local Hollywood. There's still bits of Hollywood Boulevard up that way, but that's where it starts to become more residential and less what you think of when you
Oh, I
see
see.
Hollywood.
Okay.
So if you think Hollywood is like tourist spot, that's daytime Hollywood. That's afternoon time.
Right. Shopping
Lunch,
and
dinner time. Around dinner time, that's where it'll start to shift into the party image that I would assume
is,
most people have.
pardon my naivety, but I'm sure you're aware of what Wow Presents is for
Yes,
drag. Is Wow Presents on Hollywood Boulevard or the Sunset Strip? I forget.
I don't remember. I
Because
don't know. They probably bounce between both of them. It's probably on Sunset. The's a lot more studio space
I
on
think it's
Sunset.
on Sunset because I'm in direct contact with someone who works for them,
Yeah,
and I
it's probably Sunset. Yeah, that is more the like Sunset is where House of Blues used to be. It's not there
yes,
anymore.
right.
It's where like Nickelodeon Studios is. I think there's another studio on. I don't remember which one, but there's another movie studio on Sunset.
And that's where all the rocker clubs are too, right?
Yeah, so I would assume that something like that would be more on Sunset Boulevard. Hollywood Boulevard is more tourist attraction, hotel, restaurant, hookah lounge, front shop, and clubs.
Ah,
And like I said, like during the day, it's very tourist. Too many fucking people, street actors. Take your picture with someone that looks like this person.
oh,
Um,
buskers and whatnot.
Yeah, and then they're great people. I remember when they fought to unionize. The street actors are fucking amazing. I love all of them.
Really?
They are great fucking people.
Mm,
They work very hard for their money, and they are treated like, they're not really treated well by the locals.
yeah.
But they are one of the core attractions of Hollywood.
Oh,
So
I'm
they're
sure.
all amazing people.
Yeah.
Um, and then, yeah, I was saying around 6, 7, everything turns into that stereotypical club. Everybody's in their club gear. They're ready to party. You can't walk down the streets without hearing Sweet Dreams going off in some club.
Fuck.
Beat drops, 4 notes in, crowd screams. You can hear it across the street. Brilliant. Occasionally, like, there was one time I was walking around and I still don't know what they were filming this preview for, but they were filming some band, singing. They had built this stage off of the end of the mall on Hollywood Boulevard. So we're standing on the ground and we're looking up at like this glass platform where this band is performing. And I'm assuming it was for like a video game trailer or something like that. But they're up there doing their footage and whatnot. And we're the crowd on the ground with our glow sticks, screaming, being all cheerful. And occasionally you'll just walk into some sort of production thing that happens and you'll get to be like, oh, I helped make this thing. I'm in this crowd over here. And it's an interesting experience to be there as a tourist and to go there for fun. But it's not an area that I would suggest living in. It's expensive. There is a lot of bullshit shenanigans that go down.
We've just had reorganize in the chat say I think Rodeo Drive is more flashy than what people expect Hollywood Boulevard is,
It is.
or as I call it, Rodeo Drive.
It is.
I think reorganize does speak to a bit of merit there if we can harken back to maybe the days of Pretty Woman,
Mm-hmm.
right? The whole glitz and glamour sort of idea, especially when she walks into that store with that, despite the fact that she has that wad of fucking bills in her hand,
Mm-hmm.
the lady in the store is like, okay, who the fuck are you? Why are you here?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I remember that scene, and honestly, like, Hollywood's more party than anything.
For
Like
sure, yeah.
they do have glitz and glam occasionally, but Hollywood is very much more of a party vibe than
Is it?
anywhere else is. So, uh,
Where do you feel that? And I mean, this is my Canadian naivety coming into play here. But where would it be if you can remember? Um, in LA, if I went from the Hollywood area and say, like Reorganized said, Rodeo Drive, and I went to, I guess, again, my uneducation toward more downtown, where would I feel the divide if I was going to feel it?
um,
If you remember,
you'll feel it like the second you hit Western.
or would I feel it like the minute I deviate from?
You'll feel it, yeah, pretty much the minute that you deviate from it. There's about 3
Oh,
bus stops on Hollywood Boulevard, and Hollywood has a very different vibe than Universal Studios does, and Universal Studios has a very different vibe than the North
Studio
Hollywood.
City,
Yes.
right?
And that area has a different vibe than the North Hollywood, and that's kind of like the party sector.
Oh, is
As
it?
you start moving towards the more downtown area, it actually becomes a little more residential for a little bit. And I'm speaking specifically the Red Line right now. That was my main mode of transportation, so that's all I know. It becomes a little more residential for a bit, and then you start hitting downtown, and that's where it starts going from more of a party, touristy feel to that standard downtown feel.
Right. Probably it would not being there. It would probably be the same as fucking here.
Yeah, but I mean, like, once you get down into the subway, that's it. You're away from it. You instantly disconnected from the
Not here.
Hollywood concept up top, up top on the streets. It's a very small area for as popular as it is.
Well, and I mean, it's funny you're saying get away from it because I mean, if you hit the like, I'm I guess in good timing, I'm about a 20-minute bus ride or so away from the subway line that'll bring you into the downtown for Toronto. And if you get off the subway at Bloor and Yonge and walk south, you'll start seeing the things we're talking about. Right in like the street level Hollywood idea. But and it's funny you mentioned the subway system because in contrast to what you're saying about LA, the subway system in Toronto is not immune from it. You'll get it here every day of the fucking week.
Yeah, no, not down there. Once you get down into the subway, everything kind of calms down and becomes.
That's so funny.
Now, on something Reorganized said, the more glitz and glamour area, that's Rodeo Drive. And
That's Rodeo. Yep.
Yeah, you're gonna find that in the Beverly Hills area because that's where the money.
Oh, Beverly, yes.
And the perceived money is. If you want that 90210 feel, you want to go hit up Beverly Hills. You want to hit up Santa Monica.
That's it. Oh, the Santa Monica Pier.
Yeah, you want to go hit up the more wealthier areas, and that's where you're going to experience that type of culture.
See, and it's funny because I talk about these sort of things on my show, like going back to like areas like the Santa Monica Pier and stuff, and
I've spent many a day there.
Going back even further to movies like Lost Boys and Santa Clara, and pier life, basically the pier scene, and sideshows and all that sort of idea. It fascinates me in terms of pop culture because I wonder. Is that a dead scene nowadays? Right? Like, I'm sure the sideshow scene is probably dead and gone.
Oh, yes. The freak show that was down in Venice area actually had to close down because
Venice Beach. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew most of them actually. I spent a couple days down in Venice, and I just kicked it with the freak show because.
Is Venice Beach and Muscle Beach the same thing?
Kind of. Venice is a specific area of Muscle Beach. Muscle Beach is kind of Santa Monica to Venice because they just got all the workout bits precariously placed through the entire walk that is. So it's more of a local name, or more of a local description for the beach itself, depending on what you like to do.
Yeah, it makes me think of Coney Island in New York too. The same thing applies.
But the area has become very touristy nowadays. A lot of people more go down to it to see what it looks like. I'm willing to bet that a good 60% of people that go walk on Venice Beach are there to see its how well it was represented in Grand Theft Auto. Like that's what I feel. I remember being on Venice and being like, "Oh, hey, I know this in GTA."
Fuck
well
me.
done. And I assume that like half the people that end up on Venice are just there to be like, oh yeah, GTA. Like I swear to God, because it's very well done. But there's not a lot that goes down there. It's a very touristy spot. If you're a local, you'll go sit on the beach and and enjoy the sun or whatever people that sleep on the beach all day do.
It's much the same here. Like we've got the tower downtown, and we have the lake shore and stuff, and we have Woodbine Beach on the east end, which is basically almost directly south of me. But it's like people here don't give a fuck about the tower, the CN Tower.
Yeah, and that's why I say Hollywood is what you go at if you're expecting to have fun and you go have fun. Hollywood's going to be that shiny party place for you. If you go to have fun and you stay too long and you acclimate, you learn why anybody that's left calls it hella weird instead of Hollywood.
Really, huh?
It does become a very weird place once you acclimate to it.
Oh, I would love it, I think.
Like I said, the street actors, everybody understands the concept of stopping and taking a picture with Iron Man.
For
Well,
sure.
imagine how Iron Man feels.
Well, duh, right?
Imagine what Iron Man's life is like. Like he stands there all day and takes pictures, and that is their life. So the locals tend to have a very different view of the boulevard. Normally, the locals don't like the boulevard. It is if you're a resident of Los Angeles, it is not a cool thing to go to Hollywood unless you're going
So,
to like a club to see somebody. It is not cool to go and just kick it on the boulevard.
so
It's
to,
cool
so to bring this home for a second,
but
given, like we said earlier, about the fact that because I'm not American, you're in Seattle. If I wanted a good time, where am I going in Seattle?
God, I'm trying to answer this question to my dad right now. After this, I got to figure out what we're gonna go do tomorrow, and I have no freaking idea.
Like it's Saturday night in Seattle. Where are we going?
Yeah. I guess it depends on what kind of fun you're trying to have. Personally, I always tell everybody to go and check out. Do you want to come and crash?
I look at it this way.
You want to come crash?
I look at it this way.
No, you
okay?
don't.
If you're
One moment, please. I'm consulting my committee real quick.
Mm-hmm.
if you're looking for a night out on the town, capital.
Tell him to speak up.
If you're looking for drinks, somewhere around us. The meat of downtown.
Okay, I got
Seattle.
you.
If you're looking for a club, Pioneer.
Yeah, all right. So it very much depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to have a night on the town, you want to go to Capitol Hill, explore the stores out there, the bars that they have, the restaurants that are there, the rainbow sidewalks, because Capitol Hill is it's our rainbow district. So there are plenty of entertaining things to do on Capitol Hill. If you find yourself in Capitol Hill, stop and get yourself a nice greasy bag of dicks. It's worth it, I promise.
So Capitol Hill is the queer ghetto in Seattle.
Ghetto.
Yeah, ghetto. Yeah.
You're saying the Rainbow District, so it's like Church and Wellesley here.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be like the gay area. It's become much more diverse as of late, but it is still the Rainbow District.
Cool.
It's West Hollywood of Seattle.
It is where 90% of our gay bars are.
Yeah, it's where most of our gay bars are. I frequent the area
cool.
a lot. If you're trying to go dancing, go to the club, you want to hit up Pioneer Square, which is immediately south of Seattle. It's in downtown Seattle. It's just a special area of downtown Seattle called Pioneer Square.
So if I want a club that's open past 2 a.m., what am I doing?
We don't have those. America's boring.
There's no after hours.
No. Well, I mean, if there is one, I don't know where it is because.
You are correct. Out here, it's a special event.
Yeah. In order to go past 2, it's a permitted special event in the Seattle
It is, yes.
area. We don't really have after hours clubs. They stop serving alcohol at 2 o'clock. Stores, bars, no alcohol sales between 2 and 6 in the morning.
Well,
so if you want to go clubbing, you go from 8 until 2, and then you find an after party.
Well, that's kind of where I was leaning, because when I was living in, and it's true here too. When I was living in Ottawa, there was a company called York Street Entertainment, and they ran a few clubs, but the juggernaut was a place called Surface, and they opened at 10 o'clock Friday, Saturday, Friday and Saturday, and they went until 6 a.m. each morning. But the cool thing was, I forget if it was Fridays and I think it was Saturday night for sure. So they'd go from 10 p.m. until 6 a.m. Saturday night. But then at 3 a.m. Sunday morning, around the block, and my hand gestures are going to be irrelevant to the SoundClouders, a place called Cafe Decuff. would open up, and they would go from 3 a.m. Saturday morning until 3 p.m. Sunday.
Jeez.
Yep.
Nice. Yeah, we don't get that here. That does that. Mm-mm.
And here in Toronto, there's a venue downtown called the Comfort Zone that you may or may not be aware of. They're one of the more legendary venues here in Toronto in the after-hours scene, the rave scene, and they open. I think they open at. Oh shit! Let me see. They open at anywhere between midnight and 2 a.m. Friday night, and they go straight until about 8 a.m. Monday morning.
Jeez.
Yep.
Oh, I would love something like that. Oh, yes. That'd be amazing. Oh my God.
They are the only venue in Toronto that have the reputation, if you want to relate it to Howard Stern in terms of fines and getting in trouble, the Comfort Zone in Toronto have been raided more times than any other venue in the city. And they're still alive.
Still in business. That's amazing. Yes.
Yep.
Touching
if you want to party for 36 hours, you can do it at the Comfort Zone.
Ooh, that sounds like fun. Touching on something Reorganized said, yes, Seattle is the grunge capital of the world, and
I was going to mention that. I thank you, Reorganize.
The local area is trying to clean it up, but it's not working.
I know Reorganize has been hanging out in the chat.
I'm sure we do have bands playing in clubs and venues around Seattle, but unfortunately, I am a tech head and I really don't follow much that is not electronic. So my knowledge of our local bands and my knowledge of local venues with live music is very, very lacking. I know that there are a couple venues that do have music going on regularly, but it's not like when I think of like live music or live band, unfortunately, I think of my parents' shows from when I was a kid. They would do like jazz night and blues night at
the sock hop.
Yeah, no. That was at school. That's where I learned what DJing was, and we'll talk about that one another day. But like, they would do their gigs, and so I always just assume that it's like it's not like a ticket sale tour style show. It's this is what's happening. Up here, they're promoted a little more intensely, so it feels more like trying to sell ticket concert, in my personal opinion. Anywho, huge digression to say that yes, we do have live music. I just don't know exactly where it is.
Oh, me neither.
But I know it's there, so that's what Google is for.
Yeah.
And on your second comment, yeah, Seattle's lame. They want us to stop it too. I don't like it either.
That kind of it makes me think of Ottawa when I was there, despite the fact that I haven't been to a party here in ages. I can remember a time in Ottawa because I know a lot of people there. Shout out to Ryan Dunlop and Terry Bevan, who are on Twitch. Give them a follow. Some great tech house boys, my old crew there. But I can going back to Cafe Decuff, which is fucked backwards. Before they had renovations, when that venue opened, my God, I can remember you'd walk in anywhere between 3 and I mean that was the kind of place where if you wanted to get up on a Sunday morning early enough, if you were rambunctious enough, you could come to Mavericks, which was the name of the actual place. You could come to Mavs at like, if you were up at 9 a.m., you could come to a fucking club at 9 a.m.
Yeah, that's unheard of here.
And if you went to the washroom, the men's or the women's, and you went to turn on the hot water tap, you would get air. And then came time when they did renovations, because I saw the renovations, and then all of a sudden they had proper plumbing. And I mean, let's not even talk about the fact of how difficult it is to get, because they saw this too in what came in later years when I left. The difficulty, and this is when the scene died basically in Ottawa. It is so fucking hard to get permits in Ottawa for a club, for a club or renegade, like a rave, right? It is so fucking difficult.
See, here, at least with the venues I work with, it's the venue's job to get the permit, not ours. So
well, it is the venue's job. Yeah.
Then you can just go and get a show permit, and the city doesn't really ask what's going on. If the
Really?
venue is known to have issues, that's when they'll start sending the cops in and doing the raids. And after a while, they're not going to stop issuing permits. They're gonna shut you down here. So they're not going to choke your business off by not letting you do things, because that's valuable money to the city, especially here in Washington where we don't have state income tax. So they need to get that money somehow. And so, like, cutting off clubs and whatnot, it's better to just cut them off at their source and let something replace it and shut them down, versus taking away their ability to host events, because that costs the city money.
For what you've seen, was there, and I mean, historically speaking, Seattle is the home of grunge. Did you, over the years, at least for your own experience, did you see more attention put toward, I guess, rock music and live events as opposed to our scene, the rave culture?
Well, I very much
Was there much divide there?
Over the last 10 years, I've had a pretty, well, I've had involvement in our rave community over the last 10 years, from
I know
throwing
you have,
shows
yes.
to advising. So I very much focused on our community. I really did not pay attention to a lot of other communities.
What did that involvement entail?
I do know that a lot of the fans, like the fans of electronic music and the fans of rock and rap and hip hop, they tend to cross over frequently. So, like,
Yeah?
if I were to go to like Snoochie Boochies or one of our other more not tech themed festivals, I would most certainly run into friends and people that I know. So, like, music is the scene here. So it's not like people are fans of just one kind of music.
Right.
You're not going to go to a club and see a DJ and a band. That's not going to happen. But from the fandom and the people that come out to enjoy it perspective, there is a lot of cross movement between the genres in Seattle.
Yep.
They like their EDM just as much as they like their rock and their grunge.
Oh, nice. I know we're in the middle of points here. We've been going for 2.5 hours.
Good show.
I do want to, because my show is a quote unquote radio show, and this is going to sound weird to the sound collectors. Maybe not, but I'm going to look at my camera regardless. And I do want to, given the time that we have been on air for, I do want to pay homage to the crowd who has been here. I think that's important. We have talked about some pretty fucking heavy stuff today, and we've related our own experiences to it. And you can absorb that however you will. But I think it's an important topic that had to be discussed. I do want to make the point that me and Kit are not political analysts to any stretch of the imagination. We are not medical professionals. I think that should be known, even though I should say it, but I don't feel like I should have to. But that said, I do appreciate everyone who is here and everyone who will see this on the recording, should you make it this far, to hear me say this and see me say this. So yeah, I just wanted to take a minute and acknowledge our audience today. So shout out to everyone watching and listening.
Yeah, thank you guys for being here, and thank you for staying with us as we conversate our way through a very confusing time and topic.
We're not stopping. I'm just acknowledging everyone who is here and who will be here.
Oh yeah. Stretch. Okay.
This is the point where if it was terrestrial radio, if I stop talking right now, it's dead air. Stretch your legs. Oh, you going, honey? Okay. My partner going to work.
But yes,
I do want to, since we have come away from youth queer issues. I do, even though we're approaching. What are we doing here? Let me hit my Twitch. We're approaching. We're 2.5 hours, kids. I do want to pay homage to Paper Crane out in Alberta and her recent release with Easy Kill and her track called EDC.
Paper Crane.
Yeah, shout out for Paper Crane on the arguably west coast of Canada, out in the home of the Rocky Mountains. Paper Crane is a vocalist, artist, DJ, live streamer on Twitch, and you can find her recent track on Easy Kill on SoundCloud. It's out there. Find it. It's a happy hardcore track. Going back to all the bells and whistles and all the fun and frivolity that you would expect from the happy hardcore realm. I've heard it. It's a really great fucking track, guys. So go ahead and give it some fucking love. Paper Crane is an absolute sweetheart. So, yeah. Dead air, dead air, dead air. I wonder if I don't know how to do this. Shit, because the track is on SoundCloud. But I'm not used to. I'm used to doing OBS. So I'm not used to Melon, what we're doing today for the listeners. I wonder if we could fucking rock that on the show.
I'm sure you can figure it out.
The fucking let me fucking let's have a musical. She sent me the. What did she send it to me on? Paper Crane. What did you send that to me on? Discord, Messenger, Instagram. Fuck. Okay, I'm gonna minimize this. I don't have to. Let me bring up my. Okay, I have to log into my fucking Instagram, for fuck's sakes. Oh, wait, you know what? Let me bring up my SoundCloud. Let me fucking... Oh, real time, boys and girls. I don't edit. Oh, okay. Easy Kill. Easy. Do. Is that it? Oh, that's it. There it is. Yay. All right, where's the fucking track? That's it. There we go. Yay. All right. Oh, free download. Okay, cool.
Yay.
Yeah. Easy Kill. EZ. KILL / or whack in computer language. Robot Kitty Music is the SoundCloud page. If somebody can fucking throw that in the chat. Let me see here. I'm gonna fucking get it here. Give me one moment. Do you have it? What's...
I missed the URL. Oops.
What are we hearing? That was you?
I don't hear anything.
I heard something. Oh, that must have been me. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm gonna... This is... Because what don't I do? I don't fucking edit. Thank you.
Had to get one in somewhere.
Yay. All right. I hope I don't run into audio issues doing this, because sometimes I can. It's a processing issue.
Oh, yes.
Sometimes I tell my computer to do more than it's capable of, as I've learned.
Yeah, occasionally my computer gets mad at me, but it's not like it can't do the thing. It's just like, I need to go to sleep, man.
That's it. Yep. So hopefully we can do this. And SoundCloud, oh yeah, SoundCloud's getting cranky at me. All right, let's put that to bed. I've still got my SoundCloud up though, so let's see if this works. This is Easy Kill and Paper Crane, KRAYNE, and the track is called EDC. Let's see if this works. Happy hardcore.
Ooh.
Can we hear it?
No.
You can't hear it?
No. Actually, wait, I'm listening through our call. Let me check something.
Oh. Then I don't know how to do what I was trying to
No.
do.
No
No?
musics. Nope.
Okay. Good enough. I'll do that. I'll do that another day next week on I'll do that through OBS. Well, I just learned something. I can't do that through the wonderful world of Melon.
Well, you can. You just have to. That has to do with the audio settings. Same
I
way
have
you
no idea how to do that.
It's a process.
Which kind of goes back to what I was thinking before we even started the show today, because I was kind of wondering, okay, can I have somebody on Team Viewer while we're live? Was my thought.
I mean, in theory, yeah.
I don't see why not.
I love Team Viewer. One of my favorite things when I need to help somebody do something is just
Isn't it great?
let me do it. Just sit back and watch and let me do the thing for you.
Yeah, apparently we've just learned in the chat that I can't run Team Viewer while we're doing a show.
Boo.
All right, good enough then. Well, I know how to fix that anyway, so good enough. That will be next week, probably Tuesday. Yes, for those who are familiar with my show, this is my last show for this week. I go back to I'm in all weekend. I'm going into a 36-hour stretch until Monday morning, and then I'll probably come back and pester you all Tuesday evening. For those who are familiar with my show, and for those who aren't, for any friends of Kitsune who happen to be in the audience, whether you've come and gone, my name is Claire Avalon. You have been or are watching the Claire Avalon show, and this is what I fucking do. The only difference between me and talk radio is you can see me.
Yeah. It's so nice.
And I dare anyone to find a show like mine on Twitch.
I like Mama Claire's show.
I'm gonna fucking toot my own horn for a second. I'm gonna pump my tits and shit. Fuck. Yeah.
I love
we
it so
just
much.
we unfortunately just can't do music, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, mine is set up the way mine is set up, and the way I set the audio up so that it will catch the actual air horn. I just changed its input setting.
There's a way to do it. I just don't know how.
It's in the
Is it in desktop audio?
well, I mean, for using the
Or is it in Melon audio?
for using Melon, if you look at the little buttons on the bottom under our screen where it says mute, if you push that triangle, that lets you pick your audio input and output source.
Right. So if I were to download Paper Crane's track,
you would just have to change your input. Like, you'd have to go and change the input from like your microphone setting to whatever input you're trying to use, which in that case, yeah, you just have to set the input to be what's coming off your sound card.
Oh, that would be my interface.
Yes.
Is that all?
Yeah.
Really?
I think I'd have to test. I would personally have to test run it to make sure it works, but it's literally just an audio setting. You want it to catch, what's coming off your computer, not in your microphone.
Well, for God's sake. Well, I don't know. Well, maybe because I'm pushing a lot of information into my system right now as to why my SoundCloud downloader was kind of getting sticky with me. But I'm gonna download that fucking track, and maybe next week I will. It'll be my first premiere. Yay! Yeah. Breaking from the topics that have been at hand. How's the fucking chat doing? How the fuck is everybody, wherever the hell in the world you are?
How the fuck are you?
Yeah, what's going on, chat?
How are we, kids? Canada and the USA coming at you live and direct from the Claire Avalon Show in my best FM radio voice.
I've been using my news voice all day, so you know.
In recent shows, I've kind of adopted this. If you are downtown and you are on your commute home this afternoon, we are under clear skies in the GTA, and all your major routes are problem free. Blah blah blah, etc. etc.
I like the GTA talk radio announcers. They're fucking great. And I literally, there are times where I'll just go and turn on GTA, get in the car, and just let one of the radio stations play. Just because A, good music, and B, the fake radio DJs are the best radio DJs.
Do you have any familiarity? And this is going to sound really weird to the SoundClouders, but maybe not. Do you have any? What kind of person are you, Kit? Do you? I know you're probably not a serious subscriber, but what does? Who is Kit in terms of radio? Or do you give a fuck? Because I know who I am, so I'm curious.
No, I don't. What do you mean in form of radio? Sorry, what do you mean?
Well, I'm a person that comes from Rick D's and the weekly top 40 and the Casey Kasem American Top 40 Countdown, which is now run by Ryan Seacrest. I also come from Martha Quinn and Nina Blackwood and all them from MTV.
Honestly, like, I never really like looked at radio in that perspective. For me, growing up, radio was just a source of music.
You didn't give a fuck.
It's where the music was. Like, I grew up in a very like composer, jazz musician. Like, I grew up to a family of music. They understood their music theory. They knew how to compose. You know, they had gone to college for this. They were kind of hoity-toity about it. So the presentation was not emphasized growing up. You know, radio was not something that they necessarily respected because the radio artist is just playing a track and talking. They respected the talent of the artist being played. And that was the that was the emphasis put on radio for me growing up. So there were definitely certain stations that I liked, but they were our very corporate station. You know, where I grew up, it's 103.7 Kiss FM. We had
Kiss FM.
Yeah, we had 99.9, which I don't remember what it was called, but I do know that was the 80s, 90s, and today. That that was the pop culture station. And then we had our rock stations and our classical station, which I never listened to. But I knew there. And so like radio, for me, it was like a source of music. You know, nowadays, how I looked at radio when I was a kid is kind of how I look at like Beatport or Spotify or any large music repository. It's a tool to find new music. And that's very much what the radio was for me when I was a kid. If there's a song I liked, throw the tape in the tape deck and record it.
Same, girl. Fucking same.
Totally one of those. No fucks given. I remember hearing I See Right Through to You by DJ Encore on Kiss FM when I was like 12 years old.
I know that name, DJ Encore.
Yeah, and I remember being like, I'm so glad it's the weekly music competition because I'm coming back to record this next week. Or tomorrow night, and I had the tape ready and everything, and I was like, So
did you do the whole like pause, rewind, record, whatever?
Yeah, I would get it lined up so that like I'd sit there waiting for the record, but I'd sit there and like play it through and then pause it like right at the end of the track. So all I had to do was like switch to the record setting, come back, and push record when the song started.
That's it. Yeah.
I had this beautiful mixtape that I would make, and like that was the radio to me growing up. I never really understood the presenters and the concept of it until I actually became an adult and realized how difficult it is.
Well, I have to acknowledge a comment from Ree in the chat. He's saying all good, been an educating evening for me. So thank you. I don't know if he heard me or not when I said we're not leaving. I was simply acknowledging the audience, so I
Yep.
just want to make that point to Ree.
Yep, it was break tension time. Hi, everybody. Yeah, no, the Bible Belt is absolutely batshit crazy. I avoid it at all costs.
How you doing? I'll ask you to break my radio roots, and I guess to give a nod to them as well. How are you feeling about what we've talked about today, Kit?
Oh, I very much enjoyed it. It was a wonderful experience, as always. Thank you for having me out. And B, it was good to actually be able to like talk about it because for me, most of my social circle doesn't really do politics. It's kind of hard to talk about it, but B, it's good to actually get perspective of what people think about the subject, particularly from outside of America. We're not really exposed to the world's view of us unless it's bad, because
Well, that's it,
they
right?
want us to know that this country doesn't like this about us, but they don't want us to know all the good stuff. It is just it's good to see that people in the world are just like, dude, this is fucked up. What are you doing?
Well, it's interesting you're saying that, because as much as we've done this today, I I will admit that when I learned of everything that we've spoken about today, I sat back and thought, do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? How do I feel? But if I'm being completely upfront in my Howard Stern roots, I would be remiss, given that I do have this platform that I'm trying to build, if I didn't fucking talk about this.
Oh yeah, it
You know,
needs to be talked about.
the only difference between me and the people that I respect in the industry is who aren't behind a paywall, and I'm talking about FM radio. Because I don't know about, and that was a question. You know what? Let's entertain that for a second, because I don't know this. And we're coming to a screeching halt from loose conversation right back to the issue here. And we're going to divide Canada and the US here for a second. This might be getting talked about in news outlets and so on and so forth, but for my media outlets, aside from SiriusXM, and taking away from, and I should have said this right off the top, I'm not doing this because it's Pride Month. That's not why I'm doing this. This could be fucking November as far as I'm concerned. So
Right.
That's irrelevant. But what I do find interesting is this stuff, if you want to come down to a consumer level, does not get talked about on the radio in your car.
No.
And that fucking angers me. And if it does get talked about on a service like, say, iHeartRadio or Sirius, it depends on who the host of the show is.
Yes. And the host of the show has to say certain things to maintain viewership, or those services kick them away.
Well, that depends on who the host is.
This is true.
But I truly don't understand that. Why? That's an interesting twist on this whole fucking law thing. Why? I would like to ask that question if it's not happening. If this is not being talked about on, let's call it network radio, why not?
Well,
is it sponsorship?
Probably. I mean,
is
like,
it money?
so,
Is it money driven?
Probably. So, to our conversation earlier before the show about C89.5, they are community driven, so they are a very LGBT friendly, organization. Not only do they run the music education program at the high school, our high school runs our local techno channel. It's really cool. They're also heavily involved in like pride rights and whatnot because they are self-funded. They are funded by the community. They're not necessarily bound.
They're involved in what?
They run the radio station at the high school, but they also are involved in a lot of LGBT activity.
Oh, okay,
funding,
sorry.
and fundraising.
Right.
So like, because they are not funded by a corporate interest, they have more freedom to actually try to support this, and they
Mm.
choose to. C89.5 talks about topics like this very frequently, but
Oh.
that is because they are not sponsored by corporate interests. Typically, when corporate interest sponsors something, it's not just what's getting put out on the radio station that's important. It's the image of the radio station, the talking points of the radio station.
Mm.
Do the people that work at the radio station represent the values of the people funding it? Should it be a more corporate style station? And that's where topics not necessarily get like blacklisted per se, they just don't get talked about because it's not what the audience and listeners of that radio station want to hear about.
That's so
Or
funny.
so the people that pay the radio station would want the radio station to believe. Image and appearance is kind of important, albeit it's just through an audio medium. The people that listen are important to the investors. So a lot of times stories not getting covered on radio, it is money driven because it's not like
And
they don't have the time to do it.
and when you say the people that are paying the station, you mean sponsors.
Mhm.
Okay, so now just for fun, let's compare terrestrial radio to like I just said, Sirius XM,
Mm.
to which I am a subscriber, and I listen to a lot of shows on there. Um, my morning during the week used to be Howard from 7 to 11, and then I would bounce between him and Jenny McCarthy, who started at 10 p.m. on weekdays and went to about noon, and then Jenny Hutt on a different station, who Sirius XM stars for subscribers, if you're unaware. Jenny Hutt starts at noon, and she would go until 2. So that used to be my chronology on weekdays, and you would hear a mix of lifestyle and celebrity shit on Jenny's show, Jenny McCarthy, and then when Jenny Hutt would pipe up at noon, you would hear health and wellness and all this sort of idea, and it was strictly women's programming, Jenny Hutt's show. But to go to Howard's show, even though Howard has a reputation of talking about anything, and he does not talk about this stuff
Mm.
and never does. He supports our community, but, and I mean, SiriusXM does have a parent company whose name escapes me right now. I forget it. I think it's Contrast Media or something. But anyway, if you tune in to him on any day between Monday and Wednesday when he's live, you will never hear the things that me and Kit have been talking about today. And SiriusXM is a pay service. That fascinates me.
I do find it interesting. I personally don't have an explanation. I only speculate on why stuff like that happens. I think Reorganized said it quite well in chat, actually. Censorship by ownership.
But SiriusXM isn't censored.
I know, because it is, I mean, it is a paid service, so it's kind of like HBO in the aspect of like, here in America, public broadcast television, your local channels that you can just get without paying for, they
Network
are run,
TV.
they are run through the FCC. You know, they can only show certain things. Whereas if you pay for cable or HBO, that's when you can start seeing the more gory shows, the more
Yes.
sexually explicit stuff. You know, it's the same principle.
That's
But
it.
even then, the company that runs that still has their morals and they still have their target demographic. Unfortunately, in America,
Do you figure
so
it's a simple game of, oh, even though we're behind a paywall and our subscribers are who they are, let's not go into this minefield.
yeah, kind of.
Figure?
I would definitely put it to something like that. You know, it is a paid for service, but the owners are still gonna want a certain vibe. Radio, especially privatized radio such as Sirius, in America, it is still a business. Public stuff such as TV and public radio, yeah, that's kind of run and funded by the government, but that's run and controlled through the FCC, and the FCC is its own fucking problem.
And for those unaware, once again, breaking borders here. The difference between the FCC is their sister company here in Canada is the CRTC,
Yes,
and the handshaking there for the listeners on SoundCloud is between XM and Sirius when the merger happened in the mid 2000s. When Sirius bought XM. XM is actually the Canadian version of it. That's the Canadian leg of the company. And just for clarity, even though Sirius is a pay service, and you can call it almost above censorship because it's behind a paywall to entertain a phrase, I will make the distinction for the listeners that in Canada, XM Satellite Radio Canada is governed by the CRTC, and they have a strict, it's just not the same because I've heard it. It's just not the same.
yeah, and for us down here, it really depends on your medium. Like I said, it is a business to us if it's privatized and paid for.
Like, you can't say fuck on XM radio up here.
You can down here,
Well,
especially
for sure.
if you are on a paid service, you can say whatever you want down here.
Yeah.
So, but like, and that's where I think, like, personally, I think the business would play a part in it because they do look at it as a business. And
That's why I can't ever be on XM radio.
You will lose subscribers talking about certain talking points, and money does play a huge role in it. I don't want to draw it to like a business concept because these are conversations that do need to be had.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, in America, business tends to come first.
Yeah.
And so they would rather retain X number of subscriptions by excluding Y number of potential subscriptions by not talking about it. You know, if the money doesn't pay out in their favor, they're not going to go for it here.
And why these topics are excluded, we can speculate as long as the day, right? We don't know.
We've done plenty of speculation, but like, as I said, I think it comes down to morals. At the end of it, it's how our society has been created over the last 100 years or so. And it's the remnants of an archaic society and the birth of a new one. And that's what we're experiencing right now. A new social awakening as an old social dampening finally passes.
It's funny that we've bled into a media relation to the whole thing because
it plays a huge role. The way something is depicted to the masses does affect how people perceive it, whether we want to admit it or not. People believe what they see on TV.
So, well, all I mean in a superficial sense is sticking with the whole pay service thing.
Oh yeah.
I've had countless conversations with people who know Howard Stern is my idol, and everyone I know with a pulse thinks he was kicked off at FM radio, and he wasn't kicked off. He wasn't. He chose to leave in 2005. And the whole 15-minute long clip is on YouTube for the searching. I had a coworker.
That's people just wanting to be ignorant and choose their conspiracies. That's how I deal with that.
Howard,
the facts are out there.
He had a fucking vision, and I mean, my partner gets annoyed with me because I talk about Stern ad nauseum, but he's my idol for a reason. He revolutionized the medium, whether you like it or not, and when he the man when he was at WNBC, he had 7 dump buttons on him that were never touched. And when he migrated from FM to satellite in the mid 2000s, he wasn't kicked off of anything. I will say for the 1,000,000th time, he chose to leave because he was being stifled by FM radio.
Yeah, and that's what I would have guessed. He probably left because being on XM gave him more freedom.
He had a vision and he couldn't do it on the dial. And when he left, that was the culmination of like 3 or 4 phone calls from the serious people to him saying, "Hey, come on over. Let's do this."
Yeah, that's how it works. And especially with presentation, the freedom to present the way that you want, that is important. And most people that are passionate about presentation, regardless of the medium that they're going to use, they're going to go with the one that gives them more freedom.
Well, that's why I've had the conversation more times than I want to about my show between when I started and when I got here to Twitch, because I started doing mix analysis, and then I had the brainwave like in recent months of turning my show from mix analysis into what me and Kit are doing today. And I thought, why the fuck not visit my fucking radio roots and just fucking do it?
Hmm?
Because what do I have? What do I have that all the people that I respect didn't have and don't have? Well, they do now, but they didn't when they started. I have a global reach, and so too does Kitsune.
Mm-hmm.
And so him with his music, and me with what my show is and will be, we have to our advantage a path to forage that will reach the entire fucking world, that the people that me and Kit probably both respect from the early days of media and radio didn't have when they started out.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the careers that I'm talking about started by accident, because I've seen the interviews.
The best things happen by happenstance.
I mean, my fuck. That's why I took a minute to uh, earlier to pay homage to the people that have been here and the people that are here and the people that will be here on the recording, on YouTube, and on SoundCloud when I put it there. This is like if you asked me in 1998 what if I knew what Twitch was, or if I knew what live streaming was, even though I had a media fascination back then, these things didn't fucking exist.
No, the closest thing to Twitch that you could do back in the day, like, relatively easily, is like underground radio.
Yeah, right.
Like that's short of stealing an actual TV antenna and getting into that for a second. Closest you could get to Twitch is underground radio.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
And we've evolved so far, and we've that kind of comes back to what I was saying about the next generation coming into power and fixing things. This global reach has given us the ability to not only reach farther but see farther. We can
Well, that's it,
actually
right?
we can actually see what's going on in the world. Not to derail on our subjects real quick, but a good example is the war in Ukraine.
Oh,
You're
we're way
actually
past
seeing
we're way past derailing.
yeah, but you can see it. This one's different.
Tangible.
It's not what you see on the news. It's not what's coming to you through your TV.
Yep.
You're
We are
seeing it
fucking real
happen
time.
in real time from civilians. You're watching buildings fall on civilians, and that's changing the image of what's going on.
You are
People
so
can
right.
see this kind of stuff now, and I feel humanity has evolved enough that seeing it is going to disturb them to the point where they don't want it. I think being able to see this kind of violence is helping them wake up to the fact that it's not okay. And trying to bring what I'm saying back to our conversation, I think that with all subjects, that's what the power of the internet and the power of this reach that we now have is going to give us the ability to do. Inevitably, we'll be able to actually see and get these points out there to everybody quicker. Back in the day, protests took forever to organize. You had to do it silently, you had to meet the people, you had to have everybody on the same page at the same time, and you had to do it without the phones. Now, a protest of that kind of magnitude takes 12 hours to create. If you use this knowledge and this technology to get the right morality and ideas and methods of interaction and ways of looking at things out there, you stand a much better chance at making the future better. And that's what I really love about platforms like this. It gives average people the opportunity to put these messages out there and actually get these talking points out there because the mainstream doesn't seem to do it. And that's what I really like about platforms like this. I think it's really cool. It's one of the main reasons I came out here to talk about it, because I've really wanted to talk about how fucked up everything has gotten here and why and how we're going to fix it. And I do feel that our technology is going to help us. I think it made our generation more socially aware than our elder counterparts.
Keeping with the idea of the show, and given what you just said, even though I have to pee like a motherfucker, I don't know if you saw the clip or if you're aware of this line, but during an interview at one point over the years, Robin Williams was on a talk show, and he described, whether you like it or not, he described Canada as the sweet apartment over a meth lab.
I think I have seen this clip, actually, yes.
Now, given those words, and that is verbatim,
It's not entirely
how
wrong.
uh how what in your heart of hearts, or even realistically, queer or not, but especially in the queer scene, what is your wish upon a star, or what do you have any forecasts for the future of my neighbors to the south of me? What would be your wish upon a star?
Well, I have
Taking of course state and federal levels out of it, right?
I have very simplistic wishes for society. At the end of it, I very much hope that we all just learn to fucking get along.
It's all good
You
fucking
know,
along, yeah.
if what this individual is doing is not physically harming somebody, leave them alone. Like, I hope we get to the point where people are able to live the lives that they want, and that people understand, like, they're adults. Let them do what they want and respect their decisions, as long as they're not harming people. There's no reason to exclude people or cultures or demographics. That is what America is the melding of that concept. And I hope that mentality, you know, hits the rest of the world, not because America, but because you should accept who your neighbors are. That's what makes
Fucking people.
what makes life awesome, is the fact that you can have such a variety of people in a small area. The fact that you can go down the street and see an entirely different vibe. That's what makes reality cool, in my personal opinion. And I hope that humans can just learn to get along, because we're not gonna grow if we don't.
You're making me think of my job. I'm out at work, and I have been for quite some time. But I don't look, for the SoundClouders, I don't look like how I look right now at work. I don't present at work. I dress all in black, but I don't look how I look right now. I have black hair, a black top, and black leggings for the listeners. And my makeup is a red eye and a red lip. I say that because one person on the staff base where I work is a born again Christian, and he lives in a suburb of Toronto. And despite his belief system, he is a person who, like, I get along with him absolutely famously, and I have had some of the most compelling and interesting conversations with him about things that have been on my mind as a woman. And I wasn't I didn't bring these subjects up to him looking for advice. That wasn't the point at all. I just had to get it the fuck off my chest. And I knew that if I was going to do it in the workplace, I had at least one person to do it with.
Mm.
And given his structure of beliefs, he doesn't agree with my life, but the respect that this individual has offered me, you can't pay for.
Not to interrupt, but on that note, I actually have a question for you.
No, go ahead. You're not interrupting. Go ahead.
Are you okay with the fact that, albeit you may not have changed his mind, he is offering you the respect you are asking for? This
I
is
never,
this is
I never.
this is a conversation I have with a lot of my friends
Okay,
because, you know, your body is your temple. You can do
sure.
whatever the hell you want to it. That is your right as an individual. You
Yeah.
know, at least this is my personal belief system. Unfortunately, you cannot expect the rest of the world to agree with the remodel job. There are going to be some people that just don't like the exterior paint job that you chose for your temple. You know, I'm just trying to be real yet comical about that.
Mhm.
Are they wrong? Kinda. Are they a little bit bigoted? Kinda. But I've always wondered, is it better to have them change their mind, or is it better to start with the respect that you're asking for? So like that is my question. Are you satisfied with the fact that he's offering that respect, albeit still having his own mindset?
Well, he offers me that respect because, or probably because he's not looking at me as a woman. He's looking at me as a person,
Hmm.
despite his belief system. And I say that because he told me outright that his direct neighbor where he lives is gay, and that individual is, I don't know the person. He gets along with his neighbor famously, like he does with me. So, but to respond to what you were saying about, was I trying to change Brian's mind? Not for a second.
I didn't mean it like that. I apologize. A lot of the discussions I've had with people, it really feels like they want me to change my perspective.
Mm-mm.
Sometimes, not trying to be mean about it or say anything bad. I'm in full support of what anybody wants to do. Um,
Oh,
but
the only the
I have always had that wonder, you know, sometimes it feels like people want to change your way of thinking versus just being satisfied with the fact that I may not understand it, but I'm not going to judge you.
no, and I'll be honest in saying, because he's not going to, I mean, regardless of whether he sees this or not, even though he's not, Brian has, we've had the conversations in my early years, because my track record at work goes back that far.
Mm.
He's heard the conversations about me and my parents and stuff, and I got the same song and dance from him that I got from everyone who's closer to me than he is. Oh, your parents love you, blah blah blah, give them time. But have I ever tried to sway his mind, or has he ever tried to sway mine? No. But that said, he has unequivocally said to my face that he does not agree with my lifestyle, But that doesn't mean he dislikes me. Because he completely likes and respects me as a person and a coworker. And so too do I toward him. He's a lovely person.
I wish the world was more like that. Like I said, I understand that people aren't going to agree. I think that's normal human nature.
Because I'll tell you, not to cut you off, but we were having a conversation during the haircuts presidency when the Tiki Torch crowd made themselves known, and I decided to crack that egg with Brian, and I said, "How do you feel about all this?" And he said, "Well, despite the fact that I have my belief system and my faith," he said, "those people are not a representation of who I am."
Mm.
And he was adamant about that.
Mm.
Being a born again Christian. He's a good person. He's had his days of drinking and whatnot. He's not a drinker nowadays, and that's fine. He's got a kid. He's got a lovely girlfriend. I've met them both. And he had his day, and that's great. I support Brian and his lifestyle unequivocally, inarguably. And which is funny because as I say that, he respects who I am, even though he doesn't agree with it, which is all we can ask for, right?
Well, I mean,
Even for yourself, someone can disagree with you, but respect you for who you are.
yes, and I mean, like, that personally, that's my baseline with humanity.
Mm.
You don't have to like the person. You don't have to be what they're about. Everybody's different. Everybody has things they're interested in, and everybody has things they don't like. That's human nature. That's what makes us individuals.
Mm.
But just because you don't like the fact that someone else does it doesn't mean you should hate them as a person. Like my base rule is you do you. If I'm not about it, don't try to rope me into your shenanigans. But I'm not going to judge you for what you do. I have my own shenanigans I like to go to. Who cares? Who
On
cares?
that,
Just be nice to people.
I swear to God, I'm a poor radio host. I'm going to go for a quick pee again.
All right, it's all good.
I'm sorry to the chat and everything.
I could do this for the whole bathroom break. You have no idea. What do you mean? You didn't give me this button. I was already setting it up, and then you thought of it. Next time, bring a bucket. Great. Jeez. 3.5-ish hours. Oh my goodness. I must stretch. Let's see. Dark Souls? Good. It's been a very good show. I've greatly enjoyed being here. This has been very, very fun. Thank you all for staying tuned in and joining us. It's good to be one of Mama Claire's first guests in this capacity. It's been very impromptu, but it's been very fun. So thank you guys for sticking around. Mama Claire is back.
What did I miss?
Me playing with the air horn for 1.5 minutes.
Just talking shit, eh? Okay.
Yeah, and playing with the air horn. The air horn. Everybody loves an air horn. Yeah, I love the air horn simply because everybody hates it.
I
That is why I
do.
love it. If everybody started to love it, I would end up hating it. That's just how it works.
I must say, in terms of this new platform that I am completely ignorant to. This is my first for the listeners. This is my first time using Melon, even though it's owned by the company that I normally stream through, Stream Elements, Stream Labs, all that kind of bullshit. We are a half an hour away from being cut off.
Oh, look at
and
that.
there, and there's nothing anybody can do about that unless I pay
Shame.
for it.
I'm not paying. Sorry, I love you. Sorry.
Not me neither. No. Now that is one advantage over the platforms that I have researched leading up to today. On free access, Melon, shout out to Melon app. They do offer 4 hours of streaming time for non-paying subscribers, if you want to call it a subscription. But just to let everyone know, we are fucking 3.5 hours into today's extravaganza.
It's a good show.
I am loving this. For everyone who has been here, this has been an absolute adventure. Fuck, I have loved this from stem to stern.
Oh yeah, this has been as I was saying while you were off in the bathroom. This has been a wonderful experience. I have enjoyed it.
I'm happy to hear that. I think we have long since reached the point in the show where we're just fucking talking shit.
Yeah, like I said, that's kind of what I figured was going to happen. We're going to stay on topic for as long as we can.
And I mean,
point where it's just going to digress, and we'll talk, and then we'll kind of try to bring it back, and we'll talk shit, and we'll go off on another tangent, and then we'll try to bring it back. Like every time I've watched, even like with Chad on your show, that is kind of what happens. We start off, and after like the first hour, it just kind of starts to.
It's funny because I have my Melon browser open right now, and my screen says the M25, which is the former fucking name of my show. I couldn't figure out how to edit it, so I got to go into my fucking settings and edit it to the Claire Avalon show instead of the M25.
Right, I just wrote my name in it, being like, "This is me."
I could have done that for fuck. Oh yeah. Oh my god, for all the fucking radio hype that I give, look at me, folks. Fuck's sakes, I could have taken care of all of this for the viewers on YouTube and for the viewers on Twitch, for the recording and the listeners on SoundCloud. This is the kind of quality programming you are going to receive from the Claire Avalon show. If it's not an audio issue, it will be a "Who are you" issue going forward.
Everything is done by the seat of our pants. It seems that's very much what happened for all of us.
One of my quote unquote staff in the chat said one time, one of my mods, and everyone who was on Twitch knows what a mod is. He said it wouldn't be a Claire Avalon show without some sort of mic issue.
Yep, and we were having that before we started the show. We just couldn't figure it out.
And we figured it out. All I had to do was go share.
Push a button.
For fuck's sake. Is that not the most retarded thing? Like,
it happens sometimes because, like, when
simplest thing.
I your invite, you can see me, but like until you set stuff up on your end, I have no video view on my end.
Oh, so you couldn't see me earlier.
Yeah, exactly. When you were texting me, like I couldn't hear you, I couldn't see you, I couldn't see.
So on the side, you couldn't see me, even though I could see you.
Yeah, all of this was just a black screen for me.
It wasn't until I hit show on stream that we both said hello.
Yes. Yeah, so we were like, there you are. That's when you
Fuck
first.
me. Oh yeah. My god. And now my argument is, do I want to keep doing? I think I might keep this just for this. But Ree actually told me that I don't need to use OBS anymore. But I think I'll stick with it just because I'm familiar with it. I'll bounce between the two. I don't know.
I would go through and try and set something like this up on OBS, so that way you just have a separate scene ready for your discussions.
It can be done.
Go in and crop your Discord camera accordingly. You might have to tell OBS every time you do what window it needs to crop or what window it needs to get.
Oh,
But
fucking
I mean, you
lovely.
can always set that up. But then again, that's me. I've got a fancy schmancy Stream Deck, so I just push like 3 buttons and it works the way I want it to.
Oh, lovely.
It's very nice.
So how are you feeling? I don't want to. I feel like the phrase "I don't want to keep you too long" is we've long surpassed that.
Well, we are rolling up on our limit, so I'm at the point where we can either stop and have the show stop at a good point, or we can keep going and seeing if Melon will just cut us off mid-conversation, seeing what the point it cuts us off at. See how weird it is.
Where are we? We are officially right now at 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
Out of 4 for the allotment.
Good show.
I think and it's funny because comparing this to radio, we have gone for quite a stretch, ladies and gentlemen. Even though it is later in the day for myself than it is for the lovely Kit. We have batted around a lot of issues. We've had some fun. We've had some laughs. We've had some tears. And like I've said twice, I do appreciate everyone who has been here, who is here, and who will see this on recordings when they get there. But I do believe I will release Kit from my clutches. Oh, shit.
You don't have to. I can stay.
Do you have anywhere to be?
No. Literally.
You want to, even though I just started an outro, do you want to see if we're going to, do you want to see how long this takes?
Oh yeah, I'll stick around for the ending. I've got nothing going on.
Me neither. I'm home alone. You want to fuck around? Let's test this shit. This is when I put this on fucking SoundCloud. This is going to be my longest show to date. And even speaking of that, I noticed something earlier because I tried to my recent episode on YouTube, which is also probably still there on Twitch, because I remember the outfit. Funny enough, I have Audacity to convert video to audio. It wouldn't work. But I found out why.
Audacity.
Yep. I have to delete shit on my computer. It wouldn't read it.
That's interesting. See,
it wouldn't read the file.
If video is involved, I'll throw it in a video editor and I'll export the audio separately from the video, which I have found helps. But
I don't know how to do that.
It just has to do with the format that you're exporting your video in. So if there's no visual input in your video editor, you can export the audio as like an MP3 format.
Oh, I do it all at once. I convert. What I'm doing is even though I save my shows on the computer, I also have them on my YouTube. But what I'm doing is I'm importing my raw saved data, or my raw saved footage rather, into Audacity. And until today, it worked. And so too has converting my YouTube videos, like my shows, into MP3 format, which is why they're on SoundCloud.
Interesting. Yeah, maybe it's a format thing. I don't know.
So, but I think it relates to storage, because what I was told by Audacity today, their little window that popped up, it couldn't read the file because it didn't have enough space to read the file. I have no idea what that means. I might have to delete my own.
That sounds like a RAM issue.
Is that a RAM issue?
Is that a RAM issue?
What again?
She'll take video from podcast and show.
From my computer.
From the computer. She'll throw it into Audacity so that she can export it as an MP3. And until today, it worked. Today she got a message saying there's not enough space.
Exactly.
Audacity doesn't have to. Importing audio would be a RAM issue.
It could be
Right.
RAM. It could be that you just have so much shit that you're just going to make a copy. It could be compression size. It tries to compress the audio.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, it could be like a RAM issue, or it could literally be that like Audacity just can't read the audio because it's like too much information for the program to handle, which makes no
So
sense because Audacity is an audio editor.
yeah, right. I was surprised when it said because it even mentioned C drive, and I'm like, what the fuck is this talking about?
Or
It wouldn't read the file.
Yeah, but that wouldn't trigger a prompt until you save. Maybe your hard drives are just full.
Well, I do have a top spec computer, but on my C drive, I have like 17 gigs free, which is
Oh
fuck
yeah,
all. Which is
oh
fuck
yeah.
all.
Yeah. Your computer's probably just like, I'm full. Put everything on an external, please, and start over.
So I have to create another drive, or get
No,
another, or
I
get
would.
an, or get an external.
Yeah, I would just get like a 3 terabyte external and just.
And everybody shits on me for wanting an external. Like,
I have
oh,
an
why do you want an external? Why the fuck not?
I mean, it's for backup, so like not to get techie about it, but an
Like, I know what I'm
external
fucking
hard
talking
drive,
about.
yeah, an external hard drive is good for letting things sit. You don't want to
Duh,
just
right?
keep it plugged into the computer. You want it as a backup. So if you're not accessing it every single day, these are perfectly fine. If you
Mm,
want to use it every day, you do want to get an internal hard drive,
mm.
mostly because they have higher read and write limits. The information is right there, and it's actually bad to run things off of an external jump drive. So like when you plug it in and watch a movie, you're supposed to take the movie off the jump drive to the computer.
Uh.
Um, but for just general storage and clearing stuff out, like if you're not using it, if you're trying to archive it, external hard drives are fine. Don't listen to society. That's just them wanting you to have a super fancy computer because they probably
No,
don't
it's
have
not
one.
even society. I've got fucking computer geeks telling me, oh, why do you want an external?
Why? No, you can't. No. You don't listen to computer geeks when it comes to stuff like that. That's just them being stubborn computer geeks.
I say to people, I want like a 1 or 2 terabyte external, and they're going, why?
Yeah, no,
Well, fuck you.
that
Why not?
that is computer geeks being computer geeks. That's like DJs, you know. Oh, I want to get this not Pioneer CDJ, and all the Pioneer Bros are like, what? It's just them being techie bros. Don't take that one personally. My friend does that all the time. I'll
but
be like,
why?
yeah,
But why wouldn't they support that?
because it's not the best. It really isn't. Like, not
What?
to agree with them, it's not the primo best way to store information. It's simplistic and generic, and that's why they don't
So,
like it. It's not
okay,
Gucci Prada tech. It's generic tech, and that's why they don't like it.
okay. So having a 3 fucking terabyte external isn't the best way to store shit, is what you're saying,
No,
according
no.
to these people.
Yeah, no, in their mind, there is a better way to do it. And they're not necessarily shitting on the concept of the external.
Just
They're
in
just
their
looking at
minds.
people, yeah, like again, think about it like brand clothing, like the external hard drive, even if it's name brand,
Well, then
it's
I'll do
still
what
like
I'll do
generic.
what I know.
They want you to get that super Prada, SSD install in the computer. They want you to get the fancy, and that's how they look at it.
It's
But
the
it's
same
not.
as fucking. It's the same as fucking cloud storage, which is another thing I don't use.
I know. I know.
I mean, put it on. It's on the cloud. Whatever. I don't give a. I know about the cloud, but I don't give a fuck about the cloud.
I know. It's nice and convenient, but I don't need it. I don't use it, and they just do not understand it. So they get all
Like,
techy
well,
bro with it, and it's so funny. I love.
and besides that, I mean, if I put myself on the cloud, whether it be Apple or Microsoft, do they not have access to my shit?
They do.
Well, why would I want that?
Exactly.
So fuck all these geeks.
Yeah. Get yourself an external and clear your computer out. Fuck.
There's my best paywall Sirius XM satellite opinion. Fuck your fucking computer geeks. I'll do what I like.
I mean,
I just don't know how to do it.
yeah, don't get me wrong. Like when you have computer problems, they know what they're talking about, but they're
Yes.
always gonna go for the best that there is, and they're gonna shit on anything else because that's tech culture. That's
I'm not shitting on all the help that I have gotten that has brought me to the moment that I am able to do this that I have done today. I am not doing that whatsoever because I'm grateful for that because I'm a fucking idiot in terms of tech. I'm the talent, boys and girls. I am not the geek. Know that.
I'm a little bit of both, but more talent.
I know how to bring you what you want. I don't know how to do all this shit, right? So yeah, I'm fucking numb to this. If I could pay my people, I would a healthy sum. I'm a fucking idiot.
Uh,
I will do talk radio ad nauseum, but
Somebody else has to set it up.
I did you die like I fuck. Nope.
I could understand that. Yep.
Fuck. I was on. I got kicked off a Discord virtual audience because I was doing something I didn't know I wasn't supposed to do.
Oops.
I was in a Discord watching a live stream while I was live doing my own show,
Yeah, that's a no-no.
and I got banned.
Yep.
But
Yeah, that's
I got brought back. Well, you can't just know that because I mentioned, oh, I'm live right now. Like you don't just know that. You're not born like you know what I mean. Like
mm-hmm.
I found out that it's a sound issue and it could conflict, which is helpful information, and everything is all good now. But I mean, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and that's what the appeal process is for. But yeah, no, I completely. There are things out there, especially like that, where you're just like, wait, what? Why? I've definitely had those moments where my reaction is genuinely just like, why?
Yeah,
All I can say to it is why.
yeah. Oh man, what do you say we fuck off, Kit?
I agree.
How you feel?
I feel good. Today was a very good show. I thank everybody for staying tuned in and dealing with our plethora of shenanigans today. It was fun.
Even though neither one of us have anywhere to be, we've been on air for quite some time now. To the good viewers and the listeners, uh, as I do with all my shows, I do thank you for being here. And for those who will see this on the recording, we have talked about me and Kit a plethora of sensitive issues, and the main focus of today's show was one fuck of a sensitive issue. And even though we kind of bounced this idea around earlier, I can only hope that moving forward in the queer community, despite our lengthy conversations within or leaning to, I should say, the legal system and the political system in the U.S. and specifically in Alabama, uh, hopefully, uh, hopefully the shelf life on these new protocols that have been put in place doesn't last long. One thing we didn't touch on was the mental health aspect of these new laws that have been put in place, whether they be at the education level or the medical level. Regardless, even though we did find out that it is more at the education level, um, if this does continue, to you, Alabama, I would say that if this does fucking continue, I do hope that whoever you are that run that state and whatever your values are, you are ready and willing to take on the absolute fuckstorm that you have created. Because as we discussed earlier in the show, throughout history, these policies have until now targeted the queer community in the adult sense. Now you're going after kids.
We don't do kids.
Now you're Alabama. Now you have gone after kids. And for all intent and purpose, right or wrong, love me or hate me, you have made trans youth in the state of Alabama illegal. What's your next move? Be careful.
Because
And on that, I'm done.
the American people might be passive now, but they won't be for long. So Alabama, get your shit together. It's not okay. Thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you, Mama Claire, for having me out. I appreciate the uber lengthy discussion. This has been absolutely amazing.
And yeah, I do vastly appreciate your being here, Kit.
Thank you for having me.
More than you realize. I had a guest on Instagram when I first started, and she's from Argentina, and that turned out how you can only assume. So I guess superficially, I could say that you were my first guest, and I didn't think it was going to be non-music related, but here we are. I didn't, in my heart of hearts, I didn't want my first in-person guest to be queer related or trans related. If I'm speaking honestly, but whatever, I got mad. So I'm really honored that I took a step and I approached Kit. And asked him if he would be willing to come on camera and talk about this. So my gratitude to my friend Kit for not only being willing to speak about this, but show his face while he did so. So you have my eternal gratitude, my friend.
Thank you for having me out. Anytime is always.
I can't say enough.
Well, as we do in good old Skansen. Well, I think that's all, folks.
All right, let's see if I hit end stream on Melon, will that end the whole kit and caboodle? I presume so.
Yeah, probably.
There's going to be no raid today, boys and girls, even though I never raid. But that's it, boys and girls. We'll see you probably Tuesday when I come live again. We'll see you soon, my love.
See you on Twitch, guys.
All right.